working girl, north of England way. Now she's hit the big times in the USA. And if he could only hear me, this is what I'd say. Honey pie, you are making me crazy. I'm in love but I'm lazy, so won't you please come home? Oh honey pie, my position is tragic. Come and show me the magic of your Hollywood song. You became a legend of the silver screen, and now the thought of meeting you makes me weak and uneasy. Honey pie, you are driving me frantic. Sail across the Atlantic to be where you belong.
Hola. Would you please take your seats? Ladies, yes.
Going down to her boat across the sea. Kind listen her sailing back to
Thank you. Good morning to you all. Welcome to this very nice venue. And let me, before anything, thank the Union for the Mediterranean for hosting once again in these marvels, which should be our offices, but are not, for reasons that I'll not discuss now with you. Well, thank you very much. The purpose of today's, there has been a little bit delayed in the starting, but we had 125 registration that, as you see, this is not the figure that the people hear, so we've been waiting a little bit more, but however, we decided to start now. So the whole session is on streaming, and just to tell you that last year, this session, which was already also streamed, we had over 3,000 views of the session today. So, which is a much bigger impact than the fact that those sharing here today the opportunity to discuss and understand what will be the PRIMA Annual Work Plan for next year, for 2020, in the call that will be launched, hopefully, early next week. So here also I need to make a point of apologies. We need the approval of the European Commission for our annual work plan because they contribute substantially to the funding of this call. Unfortunately, as you know, the Commission has changed. It's not unfortunate that the Commission has changed, but what is unfortunate is that the change of the Commission delayed all the procedures, and although we submitted our proposal in October the 2nd, they have been working with it, and hopefully it will be everything ready by early next week. So we expect to have early next week the formal launch of the call, but as you know, the call has been already displayed in our website now for a couple of weeks, and I hope that you all had the opportunity, and I'm thinking mainly on those looking at through the stream had all the opportunity to check and see which are the topics and the calls for this year. I'll go later on with a very short presentation on the novelties that we want to introduce this year as compared to last year, and share with you a little bit of strategic thinking that we have for the call of 2020. With no more to say, I'll give the floor now to the Deputy Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean, who is hosting us today, and who is a strategic partner for us. We work very closely with the Union for the Mediterranean, and he will address you a few words of welcome. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. Thank you for coming to this PRIMA Infoday. Thank you, Octavio, for your presentation. Thank you to your deputy also. For us, for the UFM, for the Union for the Mediterranean, it is an honor to host again a PRIMA Infoday. It's important for us also that PRIMA expands or distributes its information about its role and its capacities in the future. The relationship between the Union for the Mediterranean and PRIMA has always been very structured and almost organic, and we aim at hosting permanently PRIMA here in our offices one day in the near future. We continue following PRIMA as a fundamental initiative for supporting research and innovation in the Mediterranean in areas critical to the survival of our region, like water, agriculture, resilience against environmental and climate changes, etc. As a platform for dialogue, we see the Union for the Mediterranean sees in PRIMA the same spirit that supports the establishment of a positive Mediterranean agenda through practical actions on the ground. But for this, we need good projects that tackle our shared issues, our shared problems in this region. And in order to do this, we need you, the researchers, experts, to design and propose good solutions, good initiatives that deserve to be supported. That is why it's so important that you are here today. Our role as the Union for the Mediterranean is to take stock of any good practice coming out from this joint research effort, and to sustain it, upscaling its visibility among countries, international institutions and donors. With the political capacity of the Union for the Mediterranean, we are ready and we are willing to expand your work and to give it visibility among all the 43 member countries of the Union for the Mediterranean. We also have the ability to assess through our platforms what could be upcoming fundamental research needs for the future. This is why we regularly meet with PRIMA. Apart from everything, we are neighbors. We are very close to each other. But we have regular meetings with them almost every month, in order to see ways of extending our cooperation through joint actions and initiatives. For instance, on the Mediterranean food system, a very interesting initiative with FAO, CIHEM, and us behind that will come soon in the future. So to sum up, I could be here for a long intervention and then telling you in which fields we are cooperating, but I think it's good for you to begin working together and that you take some good information from this important day. Welcome back again. Welcome to the Union for the Mediterranean House, and I wish you a very good journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isidro. Now I'd like to invite Omar Amawi, who is the Deputy Director of the Foundation.
Thank you very much, Octavi. Good morning. Allow me first to welcome you to this event, those who are present in this room, wonderful room, and those who are watching us through the streaming. As you all are aware of, that we are gathering today as an Infoday to share some information about the annual work program that we'll be launching, as Octavie mentioned, officially next week. I will not talk about the technical details about the content of this annual work program. As you may expect, it is like a call for proposals. But what I would like to say that this call for proposal or this annual work program has been prepared over the past months with the contribution of several major stakeholders, starting from inside PRIMA, the Board of Trustees, the Scientific Advisory Committee, the Steering Committee, and the tremendous work that has been done by us, the PRIMA Secretariat. Also, we have tried during this, and above all, not to forget a major sponsor for this whole process, which is the European Commission, of course, who is majorly contributing and supporting this program. And from a strategic point of view, which will be presented in detail, I think, by Octavie after this short speech, that this work, as I said, is not only to attract scientific proposals to do science, which is important on one side, but on the other side, we are trying to channel in those efforts at the global level, trying to find solutions for the problems that we are all facing. That's why we are trying to identify the channels for collaboration with some similar initiatives, either in the region or globally. We have partnerships, strategic partnerships, like our partnership with UFM. So the message here is that this tremendous effort needs to be also understood by researchers, not to approach those projects or those topics as only pure research topics. At the end, PRIMA was made for a purpose, which is to make the impact, try to find solutions for some critical or some needed to be avoided problems in the region, which is the Mediterranean region. We have the expertise within the PRIMA consortium. As you know, PRIMA has 19 participating states. Some of them are more advanced than the others, I am saying here scientifically. So another purpose of PRIMA is to try to bring those who are, let's say, a little advancing or much more advancing, to work with those who are in the way for advancing and work together to find those solutions. In particular, since we are here in Spain, I have noticed that Spain is among those participating states that are highly qualified or highly advanced. So this puts Spain in the position of responsibility to transfer this knowledge first to those researchers within the participating states of PRIMA, so that they can together work on the problems or the issues that we are targeting in PRIMA, which you will be hearing very soon from our project officers in detail about what we are expecting scientifically from those topics. So again, without going into more details, I hope that everyone here in this room listening to us or watching us streaming take this message as a crucial message, not to consider PRIMA as only funding research project, but it's more a strategic partnership to find solutions or to address the problems that we are all facing, either in the Mediterranean or as part of the effort at the global level to find solutions for the entire Earth. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Let me now go much more to the real substance of the Infoday. I'll start with a very short presentation, and then all the people responsible for different areas in in the foundation will be presenting their own field, that is the topics by sectors and the general overview. Then you will have as well the presentation both from the legal and the financial responsible in the foundation. And you will have a couple of presentations on how to write good proposals. So there is a sort of a training session as well included during the day. You will have plenty of time for questions, and we'll have before the break at 11, I think it's foreseen, and at 12:30 there will be a session for question and answers, and before lunch at Spanish time, that is at 2, there will be also another session of question and answers. So with this, I'll benefit from to introduce you the staff of the foundation, to whom you need to add the 4 people supporting us in the logistics: Wahid, Alienor, Sarah, and Jordi, who have been instrumental. Thanks to them, we can have this session today. Otherwise, it would have been impossible, and I want to thank you as from now on their job. And I'd like to go with the first presentation. I know that Isidro has a lot to do, so thank you very much for being here. Omar, yes, please. And oh yeah, thank you. So I'll go very briefly on what PRIMA has achieved so far in terms of calls. There is all other activities which I will not enter into. And then I'll present very briefly again which are the strategic priorities for Annual Work Plan 2020. Sorry. Oops. Well, it has whatever. This is the participation of, in 2019, you see the distribution by countries. As always, the usual suspects are Italy and Spain, and followed by Tunisia, which does very well, and Greece. But from the non-Europeans, Tunisia and Egypt has been very remarkable step forward last year. The main achievements, well, the coordinators again concentrate in Italy and Spain, and let me tell you that those non-Europeans hardly coordinate ever, among other things for legal issues, legal barriers that exist in these countries. But we need to try to foster their participation as coordinators as well. Here you see the distribution. I mean, you don't need to look very carefully, but just that you have an overview on how the projects are distributed among the regions. So you see that, again, there is a big concentration in Spain, Italy, followed by Tunisia, and then we have Turkey, Egypt, France, and so on. Here, the section 2, you see that here Italy is much more, has many more projects, then followed by Spain. And this is much more important, the success rate. So, and I want to just give a few words here on the success rate. And the success rate in 2018 was very poor for section 1, 2%, and in 2019 we went to 6.45, which still is a very low figure, but certainly more than triple the 2018. This is because we received less proposals in 2019 than in 2018, probably because we narrowed down the number of topics, the number of areas that were in the calls. So this allowed to have less proposals, but also because we increased the money by about 30%. I mean, I'm talking about small figures, but that was a substantial increase. In section 2, the 2018 was 7.4, and in 2019 it went 19.5, which is almost 20%, which is a reasonable figure, success rate for any call of the sort. So we like to ideally to move in figures that are more in the range of section 2, 2019. This would be for us our target to move in this figure. So far, while we are not there. This is the reason why we have 2 stages to allow too much waste of effort for those applicants that only have to write the pre-proposals. So these are the reasons of having 2 stages, which for us is much more heavy as a procedure, but we think that helps the applicants not to have to write the full proposals, that is 50 pages. So far, we'll keep the 2 stages. If ever we reach that figure, we'll go for 1 stage, which will give applicants also more time to write the proposals. So, but of course, then there will be full proposals. But so far, we'll keep the 2 stages as you had in 18-19. We'll have also this system for 2020. We realize that it's a little bit tightened, that the deadlines are tight, but this is because the call was not able to be launched when we were hoped to do it. This is some data from 2019, section 1. So maybe the important thing is that we went from 18 million to 27.5 million this year. We had more coordinators from the south, with 40% of the funds going to non-European, 40% of the beneficiaries were non-European, and 30% of the funds went to the non-European, and 31% went to the private sector. This is a decrease from 2018, which we had 43%, but it is still 31%, a very good figure if we compare, for instance, to data on Horizon 2020, which means that the applicants take very seriously the fact that is a program pointing to innovation. And I think that this is good news. Section 2, we see again that we have a better success rate. The MPCs, the number of beneficiaries is higher, but the number, it's the same as, the figures are the same as for, I mean, here is 37, in section 1 was 40, and the budget is a little bit lower, and this is explained because usually the requested budget from non-Europeans is lower than for Europeans because there are national rules preventing them from asking the same amount as the Europeans. Here, maybe to underline that there are 4 coordinators non-Europeans, which is quite an increase as compared to 2018. Here is everything, so 18 and 19, and you see that we have all in all 83 projects, which is quite an important, and you see that there are by sectors, and most, well, number 1 sector is, as you see here, farming, and then water and food are roughly at the second level, sharing the rest quite equally. And here is a summary of the 2 years, so 83 projects, and they have been in 2 years disbursed over 100 million euros, with 402 beneficiaries, and 35% going to the private sector, which is quite important figure. So this is, here you see at the bottom, the calls that we had. We are in 2020. We still have 21, 22, 23, and 24 until the end of the program, hoping that in the meantime, since we'll have an interim evaluation, we'll be able to have a continuation as from 25 on. But this is something that at this stage we still don't know. What we want for the future, and in the future I include 2020, we need to be very, we know that we will not be able to cover all the strategic research and innovation agenda. It's very broad, and it is unrealistic to think that we'll cover it up all. So we want to focus on what we think is more important, or because it's more urgent, because it has a bigger impact, and that is climate change. This region being very vulnerable to climate change, and only this year we had witnessed in this city where we are now today quite extreme events due to climate change. One a couple of weeks ago, with water stress or water flood in the region, and which have a big impact in agriculture and the capacity of the region to feed a growing population that now it's over 500 million around in the region. The second main driver we want to keep in mind is the innovation. This is a program that, of course, does research and innovation. There can be, innovation does not exist without research, but what the program funds mainly is innovation rather than basic research. And this is something that for us is very essential. This is a main driver. The third main driver is sustainability, and sustainability. We have a big problem in the region, and not only in the region, but certainly in the region, with a lot of waste of the food, a lot of unsustainable practices, both in food, in water, and in agriculture. So all the three sectors have practices, very usual practices, that are simply non-sustainable, and we need to foster changes towards sustainability. This, of course, is perfectly aligned with the SDGs of United Nations, and we align and we want to work on SDGs, and you will see this in the presentation of the projects, in the calls, that all the calls and all the topics we like to see from your submissions the reference to the SDGs being indicators or sub-indicators. Finally, the socioeconomic dimension. This is an essential point of our program. It's a feature of our program that we want to, from the projects, to understand the impact of climate change in the Mediterranean in every sector, how it affects not only the practices of water, agriculture, and food, but especially how they affect the society, both in terms of economy and in terms of social cohesion, social distress, in case this exists. And this is a dimension we'd like to see in every project, so that every project has a thought on which will be the impact of the actions of the project. Those are the four main drivers of the program until the end of the program, and we'll choose, and topics are chosen in every year according to these four criterion. So whether they respond to climate change, being a mitigation adaptation measure, whether they have sustainable practices, whether there is innovation, and whether they really highlight the socio-economic dimension. And you need to realize that evaluators have also the same information. So evaluators would foster and would grade better proposals following, mimicking these four main drivers. So this is something that you should keep in mind. The orientation, so a little bit more of, along these four big drivers, want to be a little bit more specific, and here we give you like two tips. One is the tip of smallholders. Why? Because for two main reasons. Smallholders are much more vulnerable to climate change than big holders, the big ones. And smallholders, both in agricultural and in the retail system, and in fact in the private companies, are by far and large the most numerous population, the most numerous sector. So for this very reason, we want to focus on smallholders in every single sector, and making a big attention, putting a lot of attention on, first of all, on how they may improve the way they live, their income, the opportunities they have, but also trying to increase their resilience, because the resilience of this population is not only important for the population as such, but also because it has a big impact in the land and in the soil of the region. So we want resilience that goes very horizontally in the region, across the societies in the region. And finally, the point on Mediterranean diet. Why we want Mediterranean diet? For a number of reasons, but we realize that so far, I mean, we have you will see that in 2020 we give a big importance to Mediterranean diet, and we want really that this is projects tell us how to foster a shift from a diet today that is creating a big impact in the population, a big negative impact in the population. The figures of WHO tell us that if we add overweight with obese in the region, we have 63% of the population that is affected by overweight or obesity. 63%, that means 2 out of 3 have this problem, which has, as you know, very negative impact on health. And this is a change that we want to foster, a shift towards Mediterranean diet, which will have not only an important impact in the agriculture of the region, in the resources of the region, but also, and very especially, in the health of the people, of the population of the region. So for these reasons, we also want to have the Mediterranean diet as a main orientation topic. And here I finish with the impacts. We want, and this again, something that it is very important for the evaluators. The evaluators are debriefed with this information, and the evaluators want to, as Omar said before, we want to have impact in the region. I mean, that the projects and the research and innovation that you do has an impact in the region. And the impact, I give here some impacts that we would like to say as an outcome of the projects that you submit. First of all, in terms of economy. And in terms of economy, we want an increase in production, and certainly, if at all possible, in the efficiency of how the farmers or retailers work. To have access to new markets. This is an SME in the region is more likely to survive if it can have access to new market. And again, the fact that they can aggregate themselves, it's also a big impact. We want, and I'll go through the policy impact later on, the social and I was mentioning the improved nutrition and incomes of the small farmers are 2 tips for the previous orientation projects that we'll have, but also empower the consumers, reduce the number of intermediates that in the region are enormous, and the social cohesion. And the social cohesion has to do a lot with both the economic and the social impact. The 2 of them create social cohesion. And this has certainly an impact on migrations, but has an impact on the political stability of the zone. And this is why the policy impact has to do with sustainability, but has a lot to do with the political stability and social cohesion of the region. So these 2 first columns are essential for that purpose. And it's for that purpose, that ultimate goal, that the program was born, and what we want is to have an impact, especially here. Environmental impact, and this is very important, I mean, the climate change. So in the end, we want to decrease the greenhouse gases, the emissions of greenhouse gases, but certainly being the Mediterranean, at least it used to be one of the regions with more biodiversity, and this biodiversity is being lost every single day. So we need to pay a lot of attention to it, and not just for the sake of keeping alive all species, but also because this provides the environment much stronger, much resistant to, much resilient to all the threats it's having. And this, of course, means sustainable farming practices, and I already insisted in the issue of sustainability and the increased climate religion practices. So we want a farming system which is resilient, which improves and prevents the soil degradation, which is one of the main threats we have in the region. And finally, network. And the networking is very important. One of the main features that we perceive in the region is the fragmentation of the efforts and the lack of habit to work together, when in fact we share challenges and very serious, common and serious challenges that none of us and no country by itself will be able to cope with. And we want to foster the cooperation, and especially in the north, the fact that we are in the European Union, we have a certain, I will not say that is perfect, but a certain habit to work together. But in the south, this is much more difficult, and countries do not speak to each other enough, and will like to create as stronger networks as possible. So it's between north and south, but also southerners among themselves and northerners. We do it more or less, but we do it, or let's say that the south does it less. This is very important because there are many things and many practices which can be learned from each other, and this is one of the main goals of the program, to enhance the cooperation and to benefit from scaling up the practices and everything you can describe in your project. This is what I wanted to share with you as a main introduction, so you see, you have a flavor of what we want to have, and always put yourselves, when writing a proposal, when submitting a proposal, in the shoes of the evaluators. What would you like, if you have this information as an evaluator, what would you like to say in the project? Which is the project you would like better? If you would have several projects, which one would you prefer? This is the sort of question that you need to ask yourself if you want to succeed, of course, with projects. I'll finish now, and I'll shift the next presentation to Antonella, who will give you with all the... yes, please, project officers, come here. Let me introduce Antonella Utino. She's the project coordinator. Ali Ruma, Ali, sit here next to Antonella, otherwise, or Fabrice, as you wish. Come on. Well, in the order, so next is Fabrice D'Entresangles, who is Fabrice, yes. The project officer on farming, Marco Orlando, the project officer on water, Mohamed Bagay, the project officer on food, and Ali Ruma, who is project officer on Nexus, but very interested also in farming. So the floor is yours.
I'll wait for my... Well, good morning and welcome to you. I would like to thank you for your enthusiastic participation today, and a special thanks to those coming from outside, I saw, and also from abroad. Know that there is a streaming channel, and last year we really had many interaction and visualization channel, more than 4,000 visualizations, so impressive because yes, sorry, yes. Do you hear me now? Okay, so I proceed with the presentation. In my presentation, I will give you an overview on the annual work plan, how it will look like. I'll give you some highlights on priorities and orientation laid out in this annual work plan. And also, I will introduce some novelties that are being introduced this year. I'll go over the type of actions, the budget, the topic overview, but a high level of details. My colleagues then will go further in details through all the topics, and I'll try to give you a timeline, a calendar for the calls. A very quick glance on the PRIMA process that we follow to PRIMA for the launch of the call. The PRIMA program is implemented through a strategic research innovation agenda. Each year, based on the advice of the Scientific Advisory Committee, the strategic priorities of the SRIA are translated into annual work plan and then into calls after the approval of the European Commission and the governing board. And here we are in this stage of the approval. We are waiting for this approval of the European Commission of the annual work plan in order to start and to be able to launch the call. It is a very long process. This year it took almost 10 months, and we are near to the final step. So the calls will be launched in our website, as most of you know already, and the submission of proposal will be done in the NR platform, where you will have access, and my colleagues afterwards in the presentation will go further in detail how to submit in the portal. So the strategic research innovation agenda is developed around three thematic areas: the management of water, the farming system, the agro-food value chain, and also a cross-cutting water ecosystem food team with the nexus approach. And the strategic priorities are each team has 4 priorities, except the last one, which will aim to achieve the sustainable development in the Mediterranean area, pushing forwards the achievement of the United Nations Agenda 2020 and of this SDG. So PRIMA is really committed to achieving those goals, in particular now that we are in the decade of action and delivery of sustainable development. And that's the reason why, as already said by the director in the previous presentation, that we really want to see how the performance of our program towards the achievement of these goals. The PRIMA program is structured around 3 sections: Section 1, Section 2, and Section 3. Section 3 is about activities that are exclusively funded and managed by participant states. We are going to focus now on Section 1 and Section 2, which are action activity following transnational calls for proposal that are managed by PRIMA implementation structure, that is a foundation secretariat. We are managing. And they are funded, in the cases of Section 1, with EU funds and with Horizon 2020 regulation. And for Section 2, they are funded with participant state, national funding agency funds, and with national rules. This is the third year of implementation of the program. It's the third calls out of the 7 calls that are foreseen in the PRIMA program. What are the highlights for the 2020 calls? Okay, first of all, we have even more this year a focus on innovation. You will see we have 4 innovation actions, Section 1. And would like to underline that this innovation have not to be only technological, technical, but also organizational, social, and technological, but also with a frugal innovation perspective. That is to have more affordable technology. This is the idea of having more value for more people with less resources. It's a concept that is well adapted in the Mediterranean. So the PRIMA, you will see, we really strongly support the multi-actor approach. Also this year, we will see that it's present in quite all the topics. And this approach aims to make innovation more demand-driven. It implies the involvement of the actors, and in particular end user, in all the steps of the project, from the planning to the implementation, to the dissemination, to the demonstration. Also, the socio-economic dimension is very important. Economic dimension into design and development and implementation of the research can help to find solutions to social problems. Again, also this year, we encourage capacity building activity as key transversal component of the project proposal. So we are very enhancing capacity building activities in your proposal. And last but not least, the focus on impacts. We had a very detailed presentation on how we intend the impacts. PRIMA is really committed to deliver an impact at the end of the program. So we will evaluate our performance through the KPIs, the key performance indicator. So we will make attention that your proposal, you have to specify in your proposal how you are going to address those KPI, and it should be very in particular, this year, we have proposed some SDGs indicator for the call topics. PRIMA will contribute to some of the SDGs, in particular, those ones are highlighted in this figure, SDG 2, 6, 9, 12, 13, and 17 of the partnership. We have proposed some of the indicators there for the topics, specifically for SDG 2 and SDG 6. So we would like to see in your proposal how you are going to measure, to achieve this SDG, either using SDG indicator, if it's feasible at the project level, or using some proxy indicator that you might propose in case this is not feasible. Easy to use the SDG indicator because they are more at country level than at project level, and we understand very well this. So the type of action that you are going to find in Section 1 and in Section 2. For this year, for Section 1, you are going to find research in innovation action and innovation action, as referred to in the general annex of the annual work program H2020. Know very well this annex. And We are going to have this year research innovation action and innovation action, research and innovation action, but not basic research. We would like to see TRL from 3 to 5, and with a funding rate of 100% as usual. And for the innovation action, the TRL are not so high. There are more demonstration site demo that we are going to and the TRL is about 6 to 7 maximum we are going to ask this year. It's very, for section 2, we are going to have only one type of action. It is an analogous to a research and innovation action, that is to say it follows national regulations. So also the TRL you are going to see, it can span from 3 to 7, but it's very important, and this has been very explicitly written in the annual work plan, that we would like to see also the TRL gain. So you have to say very clearly from which TRL you are starting and to which TRL you are going to end at the end of your project. So the TRL gain for us is important. So don't write, please, TRL 3 to 7 at the end of your project, because it's not feasible. So the total budget for the calls, the total budget is of approximately 70 million, coming from EU funds, 33 million for EU fund, and from the National Funding Agency, 38 million for Section 2 calls. The distribution of topics in the calls. We are going to have for this year 5 calls, 4 calls for Section 1, 1 for each thematic area, and also the Nexus team. So 1 topic for each thematic area, 4 topics in the total for Section 1. For Section 2, 1 multi-topic call, with 3 topics will be proposed covering the 3 thematic area: farming, food, and water management. So the priorities for 2020 calls are the priorities for this call will address the main challenge of in the Mediterranean area, in particular the climate change. Research and innovation activity will provide solutions to mitigate the impact of climate change through addressing water scarcity and ensuring better allocation of water resources, also increasing water use efficiency. You will see through ensuring resilient system, and also leveraging the adoption. This is in the all what we are going to. Now the topics, I will introduce very quickly the topics for each thematic area. It will be detailed then by my colleagues after this presentation. For thematic management of water, we have 2 topics, a topic for Section 1 and the topic for Section 2. The topic for Section 1 is an innovation action. The budget is 7.5 million, and 3 projects will be selected out of this topic. For Section 2, we can say that the budget for each project is approximately 1 million, but we cannot say exactly the number of projects will be selected because it depends on the ranking list and the availability. For thematic farming, this is a special one because this year we are going to propose, 2 topics, 1 for Section 1 and 1 for Section 2. For Section 1, this is divided into subtopics, so this is tricky. The first one is research and innovation action, and the second is an innovation action. The overall budget will be of 10.7 million, and 5 projects will be selected out of them. 2 will be funded for the first subtopic on genetic conservation and valorization of animal genetic resources. The second on alternative, 3 on the alternative, which is an innovation. The third, for the food thematic area, also 2 topics, one for section 1 and for section 2. The budget for it is also an innovation action with a budget of 8.8, and 4 projects will be selected out of this one topic. And last, for the next water ecosystem food theme, this topic. It is a topic of section 1. You are not having section 2 topics on this theme. The budget will be of 6 million euro, and 2 projects will be selected out of it. So the biggest budget for each project will be on the Nexus theme. It will be approximately 3 million for each. The calendar. This is also quite tricky. We have provided the date of the launch of the call. In fact, we have to be very flexible there because it can be the 10, but it can be also the 12 or the 13. It depends on the approval. We're waiting for the approval of the Commission, so consider that this date might change, but not a lot. Instead, you are going to see that the submission deadlines will be on April for stage Section 1 at the beginning of April, and for Section 2 mid-April. For the submission deadline, Stage 2 in September, the Section 1 at the beginning and Section 2 in mid-September, and the evaluation result finally in December, as also this year and also for 2018. Very quickly, this is a sort of timeline to let you know how much time we are going to take from the call announcement to the grant agreement signature. In fact, you see it takes approximately 10 months from the call launch to the information to the proposal for funding. And for the grant agreement for Section 1 only, we are very quick. We try to respect the rules of H2020 of the 8 months from the submission stage 2 to the signature of the grant agreement. Finally, we have, at least for 2019, we have achieved this goal. So this just to let you know approximately the timing when you are going to sign the grant agreement of your project when it will be selected. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and now I give the floor to the project officer to continue further explain the topics.
Good morning to everyone. Again, I am the project officer who focuses on the thematic area water management. I will guide you through the content of the calls that we are going to publish in 2020. Before I start, I would like to stress that what we are trying to do today is we are presenting the content of the calls to pass on the key messages you have to focus on when you're developing your proposal. So we're really trying to communicate in a nutshell what is the vision and the main aspects behind the calls. This is the farming presentation, so the water one. Perfect. Thank you very much for fixing this. Okay, so as my colleague Antonella said, in 2020 we are going to have 2 calls addressing water management, or else we can say in Section 1 there is going to be a single call addressing a single topic that you can see on the screen. This one is going to fund, this call, the Section 1 is going to fund innovation actions. In particular, we are going to have projects focusing on integrated management of water resources in a context characterized by climate change. Section 2, instead, we're going to have a multi-topic call, and for what concerns the water management thematic area, the focus is going to be on efficient irrigation, more specifically on how technological solutions or practices, in efficient irrigation can be adopted by small farmers. That, as you will see, as my colleagues said already in their presentation, is one category, one target group that PRIMA really very much focuses on. Okay, so where do we start from? From the challenge. I'm talking now about the Section 1 call. What is the challenge in this case? As you can see, the Mediterranean, and as you know, is an arid, water-scarce region, one of the most arid regions in the world. For this reason, obviously, it is experiencing right now, and it will experience even more in the future, the effects, the adverse impact of climate change. This leads us to a situation in which we have less water, but obviously we are more people, we need to feed more people, we have to produce more food, and this creates a big concern, a big constraint for us, for water systems. This also reflects in, reduced agricultural production, reduced agricultural incomes. So the socioeconomic economic effects of this, let's say, scenario are very concerning. The problems that we are looking at can also generate more poverty, more migration, which are, some problems that science, can contribute to solving them indirectly, and this is in fact what we are trying to focus on. Now, this call focuses on the integration of climate change adaptation measures into integrated water resource management. So, for the latter part, the main focus on the call is on having better water allocation through better analysis of water accounting. So this focuses on gathering information, data on water availability, supply, and consumptive use across sectors, okay, so that such information can be shared, communicated to policymakers, decision makers, and water users to take better decisions and allocate water in a more transparent, fair, and efficient way. So this is really the key message that we would like to stress for this call. For the other part, concerning the climate change impacts, this call looks into the calibration and validation of models that can be integrated into water resource management to have more innovative approaches that can contribute to solving the challenges that we have mentioned. Obviously, as my colleague stressed, when we talk about innovation actions, the focus is on demo sites, demonstration actions, which means that the proposals submitted to the call should try to kind of identify some sites which are representative of Mediterranean conditions in terms of water conditions, socioeconomic issues, climatic conditions, and so on, and focus on these demo sites to try and improve, the situation from these points of view: socioeconomic dimension, environmental dimension, better use of water, and so on. Projects should also encompass a participatory approach, because here, with the school, we are targeting, we are trying to create a bridge between water users, and those who decide how much water is allocated to who, the decision makers. So these categories, these stakeholders, should be targeted by your project proposals and should be involved at all the stages of the projects, planning and implementation. What are the expected impacts in a nutshell? We're always looking, at multidisciplinary projects having impacts at different dimensions. First off, we should try and have improved, better governance for water allocation. This is one of the key impacts of the projects. We should also have, obviously, a better use of water. The problem is always the same. We have little water, and it's going to decrease in the future. And we are going to be more people, targeting water for different uses. So this looks also into providing, especially in the agricultural sector, that we know is the biggest water user globally and also in the Mediterranean, more efficient solutions so that water is preserved and it's used in a more rational way and efficient way. Another important aspect of this call is that we said we need to involve the stakeholders. We have to think of the water users and users. But in this case, we should give the same importance we give to water users to ecosystem services and to the environment. So when we look at the policy side of things, at the technological side of things, and also the stakeholders we should target, we should think how the use of water and the policies that we have and the governance framework can also lead to the preservation of the environment. And how can we decrease the impact of water use, of water systems, of agriculture on the other natural resources, like, for example, land and the environment in general. To conclude on this call, socioeconomic dimension, okay, and I'm giving an example here, one of the many that we can make. What can be, for example, a socioeconomic benefit of projects resulting from this call? We have equitable allocation to prevent conflicts. It's a very clear example of where we are, okay? Conflicting uses of water, little scarce resource. So this is one very good example of what projects should try and target, okay? Through what we have said before, technology, technical solutions, stakeholder involvement, and influencing the policy-making process and the decision. Now, we have already talked about the importance of key performance indicators, okay, so I will not spend much time. These are your reference. It's good to highlight in your proposals to take these, the ones which come from the SRIA, the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, and the SDG, the indicators relating to the Sustainable Development Goals. But again, to really gauge, the progress, to measure the progress of your proposals, to demonstrate that you are reaching targets and you're having an impact at different levels and in different dimensions, it's very good for you to have your own set of key performance indicators and to include them in your. I will move to the next call, the one in section 2. Here we are focusing on, you can see the keywords in the title. Irrigation, it has to be efficient, but here we are talking a very specific target group, which is small farmers in the Mediterranean. Now, even here, the challenge, the scenario, I think it is very clear for everyone. There is obviously, in the Mediterranean, there is a steady growth of the population, which is a global trend. There are changing food consumption patterns in the region. And you will appreciate also, when my colleagues will be speaking, that there is a rationale behind all the calls, which connects all the calls. You can see also here the links to the Mediterranean diet and so on. Now, starting from this scenario, it is very clear that we need to produce more food. We need to produce more crops. But the constraint is we cannot expand, agricultural land forever. We have this constraint, so we should look at a more rational use of the resources, namely water, and we should try and have and be more productive with the land that we have. We should try and grow more crops, have more food with within these conditions. And the key part of this challenge is making farming systems, small scale and smallholder farmers, therefore, more productive, more efficient. Now, how do we do this? It is true that irrigation methods and systems have advanced a lot, and we also know about the disruptive role of technologies of ICT in this process. However, there is when, for example, the adoption of ICT technology in water system and agriculture is debated at any conference, there is always, a very specific point that someone raises. What is the uptake? What is the adoption by those categories of farmers which are a bit more marginalized, which don't have access to technology or knowledge as larger scale farmers? Or maybe they have less financial assets, they have less access to market, okay? So here we are looking at projects that can, transform efficient irrigation solutions, being them technical, technological, or let's say tools and practices, which are high cost, okay, and high tech, into leaner, simpler and less costly solutions, which can be also uptaken, adopted by the farmers. This is the main challenge that we have. This transformation to make them, implementing irrigation in a more efficient way, but they have to, small farmers need to be able to adopt these technologies and solutions. Now, this is again, I mentioned already that we are going from high-tech, high-cost to leaner, less costly solutions, okay? We are targeting irrigation efficiency with the main aim, the first immediate impact we are looking at is increasing the crop yields and making a better use of water, which means more efficient and allow for water saving. And here again, we are looking at demonstrating the value, the benefits of adopting these technologies to our target group, our main target group, which is small farmers. This means that this category, this target group, should be involved in the project to familiarize with this knowledge, these new practices, because they may be new to them, with these technologies, and they also have to validate them. Okay? This is a process which should be based on tailoring these solutions and these technologies after the needs of the target group. Okay? This is key to the final adoption of the proposed solutions. Even in this case, I would like to highlight that sometimes policies and the governance framework are a bit, let's say, top-down. In this case, we want to reverse the trend. We want to see the best practices that stem from the project financed under this call, okay? They have to be communicated to policymakers and decision makers, water management, water managers. We want to have an impact on these policies so that there can be a transformation towards more small farmers-oriented policies and governance frameworks. So this is also a very important component of the. So, in a nutshell, what is the main aim of this call? We want to increase the capacities of small farmers to implement efficient irrigation. We want to give them more knowledge. We want to build their capacities, okay? Also, as a result, we should have increased the profitability for them, okay? Because we are looking at sustainable ways of doing irrigation, but we should think of it as a means to, creating more favorable conditions. We should, for the small farmers, we should look at how to improve the economic efficiency of such activity so that it can generate from the farming activity, they can generate, higher and more sustainable income, with the end result of improving the living conditions of small farmers in the Mediterranean. Even in this case, I just project on the screen the link with the SRIA key performance indicators and the one of the Sustainable Development Goal. So think of how your project can contribute to the achievement of these targets through the KPIs. I think this is my last slide. I finish here, and I give the floor to the next colleague to speak. Thank you.
Good morning. So I am Fabrice d'Entresangle. I'm the project officer in charge of the farming system area. And so I will present you today the topic that will be open very, very soon. So as it has been presented, there are several priorities in the 3 year, and this year in the farming system, 2 of the priorities have been opened, the number 2.2 and 2.4. These 2 priorities are linked to the development of sustainable farming system, but there is a special focus in the second topic on the social aspect. So we have been, it has been repeated this morning, the project has to have a social part, economical part, impact, and so this priority is focusing on that. In section 1, we will have so one topic, and in section 2, another topic. Section 1, so it's a little bit tricky because it's one topic, but 2 subtopics. In a practical term, there will be considered as 2 different calls. There will be 2 different evaluation panels, and if you submit to this proposal, there will be, to this topic, there will be 2 different links to submit your proposal. If you submit to the subtopic A, that is about conservation of genetic resources. There will be a special link for that. And for the innovation action about production of alternative animal fed, there will be another link. So just to be precise, be aware of that. In section 2, we have a research and innovation action about redesigning agro-livelihood system to ensure resilience. All of the project that will be presented to this topic have to capitalize on previous MED project, on previous EU transnational or trans-Mediterranean project, because some data are already available, and as we have said before, it's a research and innovation action, so we have to go a step further and don't stay just at the academic level, but to promote the data already produced. So for the topic in section 1, conservation and production of animal feed. The Mediterranean is a hotspot for biodiversity. It's very well known for the plant, but it's also the case for the animals. We have biodiversity. Unfortunately, as in the ecosystem, in the agro-ecosystem, this biodiversity is also disappearing. And why? Because we have favored some species or some breeds that are more productive. They are more attractive to farmers because they produce a lot. But they are a counterpart of this. To have a lot of production of beef, big production of milk, of meat, you need to give them a lot of food to this animal. And many times in the south, the production of the food is not enough. So the people have to rely on importation of food. So this is not a very good system, we can say. It's not very sustainable. And also, these species are not very well adapted to our MED condition, or not always. Sometimes they are not resistant to disease, they don't resist a lot to heat stress, they need special cares, they need special husbandry system. So if we take all this into account, this means a cost, a lot of cost for the farmers to feed their animal and to produce their animal, and also not at all friendly for the environment, so it's not a sustainable practice to rely on importation to feed your local livestock. So this is why we have two subtopics in this topic. The first one, subtopic A, about really the conservation and the valorization of our local species. As I already said, we have a lot of local population that are adapted to our MED condition, that are sometimes resistant to parasite disease, local disease, and they also resist to its stress. So this pool of gene or this genetic diversity need to be conserved to find solution for climate change now and also in the future. We need this information. And the call is about that. There is a first part on mapping and monitoring the population of animals that are adapted to our MED condition, and to make genetic or genomic studies to understand what are the links between this genetic and the adaptive trait of these local breeds. But here we have to go a step further. It's a research and innovation action, so we don't stop here, and we have to move and promote and valorize these local species. We have to promote these species to the farmers, to encourage them, to raise them, because yes, that's true, sometimes they are not very productive, but they also eat less, and they can produce products that have a very high quality, and they also have an identity. So there is a terroir identity, the taste of the territory. So this is very important, because they generate products that have high added value for the farmers. So sometimes it's not only to produce more, but it's also to produce better. Because we know that nowadays there are a part of the population that is ready to pay more to have product of high quality. So this is a market we don't have to neglect, and it has to be investigated and valorized. So in this type of project, of course, we have talked about the multi-actor approach, and this is exactly what we want here. We want to involve, of course, scientists that will do all the academic part, the genomic studies, but that can be translated in more efficient breeding program. And we need to involve farmers to promote these species. We need to involve extension services, the agro value chain also to valorize the final product. And socioeconomists, of course. Here, I just repeat quickly the budget of the call. It's 3.5 million for this call and for this topic, and there will be 2 projects that will be funded. So budget of around 1.75 million euros for each project. Now, here we are in the subtopic B, so the innovation action about the production of alternative feeds for animals. As we said, it's expensive to import food, it's not sustainable, so we have to move to a much more sustainable system and to a system that is deal with local production of animal feeds. So to have affordable and sustainable production. This, of course, we can imagine a lot of things. You can, we want to promote the valorization of byproducts. So it can be sometimes or new species, cactus, whatever. You can also think about mixed farming system where you use cover crop during the winter to fight against weeds. But this cover crop can also be used to feed the livestock. This is the kind of link we want to see, to have something more local and to have something based on circular economy approach and mixed farming system, to valorize mixed farming system. Here, we are in an innovation action. So we have to go to a demo site and not only to produce this new food but for animals, but also to test it on the production, to test it on the quality of the product. And we have to evaluate that from an economical and social perspective, social point of view. So it's very important to include, again, all the actors that can be involved, farmers, socioeconomics, feed suppliers, main stakeholders, as many people that can be involved in this chain or this. The budget for this call will be about 7.2 million. 3 projects are expected to be funded. 2.4 million, for each project. And here, innovation action, so something very close to the market, something operational. Now, we are moving to the section 2 topic. Here, we are more at the farming level, at the farming scale. It's about, so it's a research and innovation action. It's about redesigning agro-livelihood system to ensure resilience. We insist on resilience. As I think the majority of the people in this room know, monoculture is not a sustainable way of doing agriculture. These practices use a lot of water, a lot of pesticide, and also they are associated with a high risk of losing all your yield after an extreme event. If you put all your eggs in the same basket, there is a problem. If there is a drought, you will lose all your incomes for the farmers. So this huge variability and uncertainty is not good for the farmers. We have to move to something much more sustainable. And this is why we want the design of resilient system that can maintain yields and incomes even after extreme events. It's very important. So some approach to do that, it's to mix also perennial species, annual species, maybe small ruminant or so small animals in the farm, to have a mixed farming cropping system, and also to apply principle of agroecology. So crop rotation, to have diversification, to use legumes, all these kinds of approach are very welcome, and with the main goal of always having in mind, ensure a fair and stable incomes for the farmers. They are at the center of our project. The smallholders need to see benefits of this project. So here, this part, I put in big the socioeconomists, because really the farmers are at the center of this project, and we need to have a part on socioeconomic studies inside the project, integrated in the project. So here, also just to mention, we are not expecting proposal dealing with the development of new resistant line or a new breeding program. We are expecting more demo site of farm to test the varieties. Not to take 10 years to develop a new variety, but okay to test the varieties that have already been developed in the previous. Here, so we have a global budget for Section 2. The budget should be around €1 million per project, and the duration is with 4 years. So to sum up, here I only have one slide of expected impact for the 3 topics I presented, or the 2 topics I presented, because there is one main message behind that. It's we want concrete and sustainable solution for small farmers under climate change scenario. This is the main goal of all the topics. We have to focus on that. And why? But we are in an emergency, a crisis of climate change, a crisis of biodiversity. So now we have to act. We can have a look outside today. We are at the beginning of February and it's 22 degrees. So we have evidence. We have to act now. And this is why we want to rely on applied research projects that can provide solution. This solution can be made by studying and having more knowledge of our breads, by producing local food and integrating all these parts. You can obtain also at the end maybe a more sustainable and more resilient farming system. So it's kind of a whole system that has to become resilient and prepared for climate change. So we expect demo site, we expect living labs, we expect the involvement of all the stakeholders, the farmers mainly, and we need guidance. We need to change, but we need to understand how to change also. So we need guidance on transition, training for farmers, coordination among actors, because everybody, all the efforts are scattered. So we need a certain coordination at the level of the value chain, but also at the policy level. It's very important. And we expect to have the development of a new value chain. So this is the list of KPIs, as my colleagues already presented. It's just some example, but of course it's very important in your project to make the links between KPIs, SDGs, etc. Here we focus on the SDG 2, but of course in your project you can find other links. There are SDG 13, 6, 15, etc., etc. It's just an example. So I finish here, and I just want to thank you for your attention.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Mohamed Waghi, PRIMA Project Officer for the agri-food. I'm pleased because when Antonella was presenting the slide of the agri-food, I saw that many mobiles start taking some shots. So maybe a good percentage of you are interested about the topic of the agri-food, which is appeared now on the screen. Okay, for the year 2020, we will have 2 topics for the agri-food sector. We will have 1 innovation action for Section 1, and we have 1 research innovation action under Section 2. And in the upcoming slide, I'm going to show to you the specification and the challenges and the scope under each one of these topics. Starting with Section 1, the Mediterranean region is characterized by one of the most healthiest Mediterranean dietary system in the world. But in fact, it was reported that over the last decade, there is a significant shift in the dietary habits of the population in the Mediterranean region toward fast meals and junk foods. And this leads for sure, as Octavie mentioned in the morning, to many health implications, such as rising the prevalence and the incidences of the non-communicable diseases in the region, such as cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and certain types of cancer. On the other side, the World Health Organization in Europe, for instance, stated that 1 out of each 3 children in the region, in Europe, considered obese or overweight. And for the other non-EU Mediterranean countries, it is even worse, because it was stated as well by the EMRO, WHO, the regional office, that males and females in the region tend to be more overweight or obesity, and this is increasing drastically over the last few years. So it is really important to encourage the people to move back to the healthiest dietary pattern and to adjust the food consumption patterns and trends in the region. This has to be tackled in more holistic approach, considering mainly three main pillars. First is to valorize the Mediterranean diet through three main factors. First, to promote the nutritional value of these Mediterranean food products, but this is not enough because we need to consider as well we are competing against fast food, which is cheaper than the regular Mediterranean diet. It is more maybe attractive, colorful, and a lot of promotion. So we need to consider the consumer satisfaction and acceptability of this Mediterranean food. So we can offer for them a more appealed products for them. So this for sure need as well in-depth assessment and study of the markets, so we can position this Mediterranean diet against the fast food or the unhealthy Mediterranean habits, so they can compete and find their position in the market. The second pillar is to enrich the valuable bioactive compounds and components in the Mediterranean food, and this again reflects on the enrichment of the nutritional value of these food products. And the last pillar is to study and to promote the healthy lifestyle in the region, considering the different factors and parameters regarding to this, social, economical, and the psychology of the people. But this is not enough, because we need as well to consider the macro level through studying the critical gaps in the Mediterranean nutrition policy and how we can give like more incentive or promotion to the healthy diet, and the multi-actor participatory approach via making sure or guarantee the active and real engagement of the stakeholders and the end users in your process. So the expected impact is first to have a non-destructive, eco-friendly food processing technologies and tools that not only just preserve the valuable contents of the food, but also trying to enrich this, again, eco-friendly. Then the second expected impact, to have new value added for the Mediterranean traditional food, so it can be more appealed and attractive for the consumers, and being able to penetrate to the market and to be commercialized against the other unhealthy food. Also studying the efficient strategies and policies that can also foster the trend or highlighting the health benefits of the Mediterranean healthy diet, and studying again the Mediterranean lifestyle. Here we put some key performance indicators, but you feel free to add your own as well based on the nature or the type of your project. But this is the KPIs from the perspective of PRIMA, like the number of new health-related and high-quality food based on the traditional Mediterranean food that we are having, and it is also aligned with SDG 2.2.2 about the prevalence of the malnutrition in the region. Now moving to section 2, where we put the smallholders and the small farmers at the heart of this topic. This is the characteristic of the supply chain system of the agro-food in the Mediterranean. It has two ends. One side are the customers who are looking for affordable food products, which is safe with the highest quality and with a fair price. And at the beginning of the supply chain, we have the smallholders, like the farmers and the small producers and the local producers as well, who are looking for higher profit, other non-financial benefit, and as an instrument as well to have accessibility to the market so they can sell their products in a more efficient way. But this is not an easy task for them in the Mediterranean region. Why? Because first, the supply chain in the region, it's long and complex with numerous local actors, even more potent and stronger than the local holders. Also, the globalization put an additional tough competition in the shoulder of the smallholders and the small producers, especially in the region characterized by importing most of its agro-food products. And this for sure at the end resulted in a limited profit margin for the smallholders, comparing to the final price that is decided by the big manufacturers, not by the smallholders. So the scope of this topic first is to optimize this supply chain and try to shortening this supply chain to make direct or at least semi-direct communication channels between the consumers and the smallholders. So this can be achieved by optimization of this supply chain, like restructuring this supply chain, considering two aspects, the technological innovation as well as the organizational innovation as well, fostering the competitiveness of the local clusters, local farmers groups, cooperatives, and the local producers, so they can compete and have more competent and competitive final products. And finally, to provide for them an access to the market so they can sell their products in a better form and more directly so they can get more benefits. Back to back with this, we needn't to forget the importance of the circular economy as an additional benefit or a tool for the small farmers so they can reduce their waste losses, reduce the cost, and increasing their benefits as well. So the expected impact or the expected solution from your side is to have new technologies and tools that can provide access to the market to the farmers, considering as well the types and the literature level of the farmers. Because, for instance, the literacy level of the farmers. Because, for instance, we cannot, providing for them a high-tech, sophisticated solutions, because in this case, they will not be able to use it or to maintain it. That's why we need to consider the importance of the frugal innovation and social innovation in order to provide for them a low-tech solution, effective, affordable, low-cost, easily to be maintained and used by them, empowering the competitiveness and the competences of the local farmers so they can position themselves in a better position throughout the value chain and the supply chain, advancing the added value of the products produced by the farmers, because most of them used to sell the products in a raw form. But if you can provide for them simple solution that can give them the ability to sell their products in a semi-processed or processed way, so they will get higher benefit or higher price for their products, introducing the concept of the fair trade in the region, and finally, once again, putting the consumer's feedback at the heart of the solution that you are going to propose in order to measure and to verify the quality and safety of the products produced by the small farmers. And this can give them later a feedback for them how to improve their products and to satisfy the needs of the consumers. And finally, the key performance indicator for this, for instance, the number of business models for the quality and the safety and sustainability of the local SMEs and the smallholders. And it is also aligned with the SDG 2.3.1 about production per lab per unit by classes, farming and pastoral, forestry, and the enterprise size. Just to end up here with the highlighting again the importance of two aspects, especially in the innovation action, which is the engagement of the stakeholders, because this is the key success, and not only during the project, but also for the sustainability and the impact pathway at the end of each of these projects. That's why we're highlighting about the importance of the engagement, but real engagement of the stakeholders, starting from the private sector, policymakers, the end user as well, the public authorities, and the civil society as well. And thank you so much for your attention, and good luck.
Good morning. My name is Ali Roma. I am in charge of Nexus, but as said Octavi, I feel more attracted by the farming system, and I am in charge of farming innovation action, and it is very nice to collaborate with my friend Fabrice since several years ago. So, as you know that besides the three topics of water, farming, and the food, and given the interlinkages between the three topics, so this year we will launch a specific topic on Nexus, but it is innovation action, because last year it is research innovation action, and this year it will be an innovation action. So what are the challenges for this call? I summarized the challenges of this call in these slides. So the natural resources, as you know, water, land ecosystem are affected and by the climate change, but also the growth of the population. In the Mediterranean, the population will grow, and this leads to an increase of demand for water, food, and energy. And this demand exerts a pressure on the natural resources. So this is like the general challenge. But if you look now to the vertical management, and I illustrate here the silos. You see here the vertical management of the resources, the water, land, ecosystem. So this vertical management, and also this shortcoming in intersectoral connection are a major challenge in our Mediterranean region. And here it's a challenge even at the national level or also at the international level. But the most important challenge is the third one, is the conflict. We have a lot of conflict because we share the same resources. We have a vertical management, so there is a conflict between the stakeholders. And the most typical conflict, as mentioned by my friend Marco, is the water conflict. And as you know, that in the Mediterranean region, agriculture accounts the majority of fresh water withdrawal, maybe around 70–80%. So this situation begs for the integrated management of natural resources. And this integrated management of natural resources will, of course, improve the sustainability of the resources and improve the food security. So the nexus as an integrated approach, but I want to say something here for the nexus. I think the nexus, since the Bonn Nexus Conference in 2011, it received a lot of attention in the Mediterranean region. But let us say that even before, because it was preceded by the integrated water research management, as said by Marco, and also by the environmental policy integration. They preceded, but they are more focused. The environmental policy integration is focused on the environment, but the integrated water research management is more focused on water. So this approach, the Nexus, as an integrated approach, can identify the conflict between the stakeholders. It helps to identify the links and the conflict between the stakeholders, and then it can prioritize. So it can help us to allocate fairly the resources between the stakeholders in order to give a solution for an efficient and sustainable integration of the water of the resources. But I want to say here something, that this approach, the Nexus, requires the involvement of all the stakeholders, the policymakers, the farmers, the industry, the privates, and so on and so forth. So this is very important, and this is the approach, and the multi-approach sector is very important for the Nexus. What I want to say here, that in the Mediterranean, that we have a lot of examples of the Nexus. We have a lot of good practices. But what is missing? There is very little progress so far in the operational of the Nexus, in the implementation of the Nexus on the ground. So the scope of this year of this call is the implementation of an operational Nexus approach in the ground in order to demonstrate the benefit of the economic, social, and environmental benefits of the Nexus. But it should be in some concrete specific sites. In some critical sites, and you know, in our Mediterranean, we have a lot of specific sites that we can take into consideration. So this is like a concrete nexus. But last year, it is like a research and innovation action. It is dedicated to the assessment of the existing nexus in the region. So it's only an assessment and some tools to assess and to understand the synergy, the trade-off between across the sector. But this year, we are in implementation of a nexus, and the budget, as said Antonella, is about 3 million of euro. So here, what I want to stress out is the activity should realize and should put in the implementation of operational projects the good practices. And I think we have a lot of good practices in the region, and we need to valorize the good practices in the implementation on the ground of the nexus. And I think that the GRC, together with the UFM and with the GWP, launched a call for the good practices, for the Atlas of good practices. And I think we have a lot of good practices, and we need to implement these good practices on the ground. So we need, of course, the involvement of all the stakeholders, and I mention here mainly the private sector, the stakeholders, the local authorities, and of course the farmers. But the involvement of all the stakeholders is very, very crucial. So what we expect for this topic, first of all, and which is very, very important, is the adoption. We need the adoption of the nexus, because if we will implement on the ground, if we will have an operational nexus, so the first impact is the adoption by the stakeholders. We need to adopt, otherwise the project will not be sustainable. And the second is how to link. We need to have a solid link between all the stakeholders. And this impact will facilitates also the sustainability of the project. But what we need in the Mediterranean, we need to have like a nexus, but we need the project should be sustained, and we will need to capitalize and we need to replicate this project in other sites. Of course, we need to enhance the scientific capacity. We need to train all the stakeholders for the nexus, because it's very, very important that we need to, we are learning, because as I said that the nexus, the concept of nexus is after 2011 that received a lot of attention in the Mediterranean, but we need to strengthen the capacity, we need to learn by exerting. For the SDGs, I think this project can contribute to the implementation of the SDGs. And as you know, that we have 17 SDGs right now, but for the nexus, we can contribute for the implementation of 5 SDGs, 2, 6, 13, 15, and 12. And I put here the targets, if you like to see, in each SDG, what are the targets for each SDGs. As for example, for water, the water supply, the water quality, and the water efficiency. What I want to add here is that the nexus can also help for the implementation of the NDC, the National Development, the NDC for each country. So I think that the successful consortia will be invited and will collaborate in the AC, because there is like a knowledge hub of the European Commission, and the successful consortia will collaborate with the AC platform on agriculture and water. And I think that this is very interesting topic, and good luck if you wish to apply for this topic, and thank you very much.
Thanks. Do you have any questions at this stage? Because we have the second block. So, Marta. Not. Yes, un momento que te dan. Bye-bye too.
In fact, for societal challenge 2, the multilateral approach, when it is indicated as such, is compulsory. You have to adopt this multilateral approach. Normally, it implies a big consortia, and so there should be also capacity of coordinating big consortia. In our case, we are more flexible. We would like to have multi-actor approach, so the participation of many stakeholders as possible, but we don't have exactly the same approach as, the same indication requirement as in the Societal Challenge 2 work program.
Yes. So this topic is an innovation action about the feeding of animals. So we want something that is very close to the market, operational. For this reason, we mentioned like demo site where you produce the new food, and at the same time you also test it on the animals. Is there an impact on the quality of the project or on the health or welfare of the animal? So we are expecting TRLs that are close to 7, maybe more if possible. But it's an innovation action. So we are at the top of the scale of the technology readiness level. In terms of the kind of product we want, this is open. We are not targeting any kind of product. I was just giving you an example like using cover crop that can be used as feeds for animals. We have some example in the past of project dealing with cactus, this kind of things. But all the waste that can be generated or in the farm or in the agro value chain also can be considered to be part of this alimentation. Of course, this has to be also socially accepted. You don't have. We all remember the crazy cow in the past. We don't want to repeat this type of problem. So, of course, social acceptability has to be taken into account.
No changes at all.
in particular of and I would like
Thank you so much. In fact, in your last sentence, you already answered this about increasing the TRL because you said that you already have a project. It's a research innovation action. So for sure you approach or you are planning to approach a certain TRL level. The good point that you are talking about section 1 innovation action, which is TRL higher, 6 to 7. So for sure, if you have some valuable findings from the other projects or initiatives and you wanted to continue and to build on this is for sure much appreciated. But taking into consideration that we are talking about innovation action and in the region, because I don't know about your other H2020 project, because it has to be also adapted to the Mediterranean diet. So this as well, this is like the second dimension, the TRL, and to be adapted to the needs of the local or the domestic in the Mediterranean region.
question and we involve them like define their or
Yes, I'll start by the last one. We prefer always PRIMA participating states. Now, if you need to have a non-PRIMA team, you may always use them, either through subcontracting as a full partner, but then they will have problems with the funding. So the funding will not be, depends, because the Europeans may have access to funding as well, but and then in this case, not as coordinator, but the partner you are suggesting is not the coordinator. So as a rule of thumb, first of all, please, if PRIMA partners, you can choose among the PRIMA participating states. It's always preferable in case you do not. Those that belong to the EU have access to funding. Those do not belonging to the EU do not have access to funding. They can always participate. And if you do a subcontracting, I mean, later Julia will discuss about subcontracting, how it works, who is entitled, and how they are funded. I am not sure I understand. Maybe you do, but I do not.
So maybe if I understand correctly, your question is you would basically transfer the results of the projects you are.
anything you do to increase the impact of your projects, of course, or previous research, of course, is welcome. Then you need to explain very well what you do, what the project is about, and how do you increase the impact. So, but if you are able to show us that you increase the impact through whatever you do, it's always very good. Yes?
Thank you, Christina, for your question. So what I mean here, and I will come back just for last year. If you, maybe some of you participated last year it is like a tool of assessment of the existing nexus, how the tools to understand the synergy, to understand the trade-off. But this year we will move to the ground. We will put the nexus on the ground. So we'll implement the nexus in one site, for example. Let us say, but for example, one site characterized by different climate conditions. It can be, for example, growing season for hyper-intensive, for example, cropping system. And then all the stakeholders will put in practice what has been found before, good practice. It can be like irrigation system, drip irrigation system. It can be like a solution for saving for water. It can be also recycling of wastes. So we have to put in practice what has been found before as good practices in the ground. But it should be done in collaboration with all the stakeholders, and mainly the policymakers, because there is we have to share the resources, so the policymakers should be involved. Also the local authorities should be also involved. And then finally the farmers, the private sector, because the private sector can maybe propose some solution, some affordable solution for the farmers. If you have a private company and have a good solution for water saving, or a solution for how to harvest or whatever. So the private sector will be involved and will give this affordable solution to all the stakeholders. So this we need to share what has been found in one site. And the final is to adopt what we share for the resources, for the technology, and also for the policies and all the aspects of the nexus. I think that we didn't reach this stage because up to now we have some small nexus. We have for example in Tunisia, we have also in Egypt, in Morocco, in Lebanon, in Jordan. There is some very good examples, but they still at small scale. So we need to operationalize, we need to put implant in the ground, and we have to put all the good practices in the ground. So the good practices are open. It can be technological, it can be organizational, it can be all the solution available. And what I said in my presentation, that the European Commission with the UFM and with the JWP, they launched 1 year ago, I think, that platform to collect all the good practices. But I'm not sure if they are right now available or not. So we can maybe come back to these good practices already available. We can go to the good practices available in the countries and then put it in the ground. But of course, as I said, with the participation of all these stakeholders. Because the idea here, as we have a lot of conflicts. Water, for example, if we water, 70–80% of the water, with groundwater, is go to irrigation. And there's a problem with the industry. We have the tourism, we have other sectors. So there is a conflict. But not only in water, but even for the other resources, on the land, on the other resources, food. So the idea how we can build, and this is, I think, if it will be a successful experience, is if all the stakeholders will collaborate together and put implement on the ground this nexus. I know that it's not very easy, but if we will succeed, and we have two projects, and we put 3 million, we put a lot of budget because we know that we involve all the stakeholders and mainly the private sector if they have like some affordable solution to put it in the ground. So I don't know if I replied to your question. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Last question.
Okay, so thank you for the question, which is quite interesting because sometimes we talk about taking better decisions, okay, and having, I think you're referring to the first call that I presented. So how can you take better decisions if you don't have evidence and good quality data, as you're saying, to do this? So I don't have a straight answer for your question because obviously you would have to frame the project. It has to fit with the scope of the call. However, yes, we are talking when we are talking about water allocation, based on better water accounting, we are talking also about data. Okay, data sets that can be also processed, made digestible to policymakers. This is we go again back. I know that we are talking all the time about it, but the involvement of the decision makers. So yes, this could be part of a project. Now again, I would have to. This is a general question, to which I can say, from a general point of view, yes. I don't see why not. But again, I will stress it again. It's about communicating, informing, policymakers and users of what are the consumptive use of water, what is the availability supply. So data for sure is part, and good quality data for sure is welcome. I don't know, maybe.
Fine. We'll have later on presentations in which we include this issue and we can discuss it further. I'd like to close now the session, otherwise we'll be very much in delay for the next block. But you will, at the end, have the opportunity to recount with further questions. So thank you very much. And please, the next panel, which some of you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now we will start another session that it's about the submission and the evaluation of your proposal. So it's much more practical. We are not talking about topic here, but more how to apply, where to find the document, and what you have to do to apply. So the first thing, the rules for participation. They are very simple. There is a minimum of 3 partners that is needed, and you need to include in these 3 partners to have at least 1 partner from a European countries participating in PRIMA, and 1 partner from a southern countries participating in PRIMA. The third one can be or from the EU PRIMA country or from a non-EU PRIMA country. This is the basis to have an eligible consortium. Here, this is valid for Section 1, it's also valid for Section 2, but I want to stress a point. In Section 1, almost everybody is eligible, and in Section 2, as it has been presented this morning by Antonella, each country funds its own researcher, meaning that if you apply to Section 2, you have to verify that you are eligible, because each funding agency has different rules. Sometimes they fund private sector, sometimes not. Sometimes some types of expense are valid and other times not. So you really have to focus on that. There is I will show you a small document called National Regulation, and it's really important to read very carefully this national regulation if you are applying to Section 2 to avoid any problem of eligibility. So this is very, very important. The PRIMA website. The PRIMA website is our main source of information. All the documents are published here, all the calls, all the templates, everything you need to apply to the call and understand what is PRIMA is on our website. So I really encourage you to have a look to this website. This website, of course, have a section on call section, a section called call section, and it's here where will you find all the information about the calls we will launch soon. We have also another tool, that is the partnering tool. I will not enter into detail because my colleague Ali will present you this tool, but it's important to know that you can find some partners through this tool. And we also have an expert registration tool. So if you want to participate to the evaluation of the PRIMA project, you can, and you have to register in our database. Just a word on that. Of course, if you apply to a project on the same year, you cannot be an evaluator. Even if the topic is different, even if the section is different, if you are involved in a project as partner or coordinator, you cannot evaluate any proposal the same year. This is the rule. So, but if you want to register, you are very welcome, and the registration is always ongoing. We launch a specific announcement for this, but generally you can register during all the year. So in our website, for the part of the call, this is the call section, and you will find everything you need here. For call for proposal, if you click on that, you will have the description of each call of the topic we have just presented, and by clicking on it, you will have more information, more detail. Is it a research and innovation action? What is the budget? The deadline for submission that are very important. The full proposal, the pre-proposal, etc. You have the full call text. This full call text is already available on our website on the orientation paper that has been published. So it's a very good way of knowing in detail what is inside the call. And for each call, so you will select the call you are interested in, and there is a submit button proposal. So This is what I was telling you for section 1, subtopic A and subtopic B. Here, there will be two different pages. One for subtopic A, the conservation genetic aspect, and one for the food aspect of animals. So these links are different. But once you have selected the calls you are interested in, you click on this link, and you will be redirected to the ANR platform to submit your proposal. The ANR platform is the French platform that we are using since the beginning in PRIMA. And all of you that already have an account in this platform should use the same account. It's valid. So if you forgot the password, there is a way to get it back. And you can follow using the same account. It's much easier for you. Also, just this button, Submit a Proposal, on the PRIMA website is working 1 month before the deadline. It's activated 1 month before the deadline, meaning this year, the provisional calendar, we say for section 1, the submission should be the 1st of April. So this means this button will be active the 1st of March. And the 15th of March for section 2, with a deadline of submission the 15th of April, 1 month before. If you click before, it doesn't work. I tell you that because we receive a lot of emails saying, the link is not active. Yes, it's only 1 month before. Once you are on the ANR platform, so you have to submit a different document. I will present you that. But I want to stress the point, there is an electronic submission system handbook. This is very useful for you. It guides you step by step what you have to fulfill, where to fulfill the information, how to do, what to upload, where I can upload the document, etc., etc. It's a document that is made with screenshot. It's very easy. So I really encourage you, when you are in front of this submission platform, to also have this guide on your side and follow the step. And this will be really easy for you because the information we ask is not complicated, but it takes time. And sometimes, don't wait the last minute to fulfill the information online. Because there is general information, abstract, but you also have to enter all your partners inside the website. So it's not a big job, but it can take time. You have to introduce the email of your partner because your partner will have access to this. It's the coordinator who create the proposal, but the involved partner have access to this platform to modify their data for administrative data and budgetary data mainly. So again, use this guideline, and everything will be all right for you. It will be easy. There is a section. So under each call, you will find the document that are needed to submit your proposal, the template, the guidelines, etc. But there is another way of finding this document is the reference document. In the call section, we have something that is called reference document. And here you find all the documents of PRIMA. The annual work plan, the strategic research and innovation agenda, the model grant agreement that will be presented later on. You have everything, and you have the template and the guidelines. So don't use different templates you have elsewhere in other programs. Use the templates that are on our website, please. It's the same for section 1 and section 2. We are asking the same information, and the process of submission for our side is exactly the same. So this is a kind of screenshot of what you can find in the reference document. You have guidance for section 1, guidance for section 2. It's very specific, and a template. What is needed to submit a proposal? So first, to have an eligible consortium. This is what I was telling you. 3 partners, 1 from the EU, 1 non-EU, and the other, it can be one or the other side. And you have to submit all the documents we need. So the template. There is an administrative template that is called Part 1. I really insist a lot on this Part 1 because it's an admissibility criteria. And each year we have to declare project non-admissible. So it means your proposal will not go into the evaluation process because this template is missing. So it's really, really important to think about that. I know many times you focus much more on the technical part because it's the heart of the project, but don't neglect this part because you can be disqualified for this reason. So it's very important to have this in mind. So the part one is needed. The part two, this in general, you don't forget it because it's the heart of your project. So you develop your project inside. And we ask for a budget. The budget is only global for the first stage. You fulfill it directly on the website, and we request only the total cost and the requested budget for each partner. If you are selected for stage 2, in this case, you will have to submit a more detailed budget. That is an Excel file you will have to upload to our website. But stage 1, only global information online, no Excel file to be uploaded. And so don't forget to fulfill all the administrative data in the platform. All these documents are considered for the admissibility check. If one of this information is missing, you are not admissible. And the consortium, the eligibility check. If you don't have 3 partners that correspond to the 3 different entities, north-south equilibrium, you are not eligible, and so you cannot participate to the evaluation process. So some administrative tips, but that are important for succeeding. The part one is really, it's something simple. In reality, we are just asking the title, what is the acronym of your project, the list of participants and their organization, a small abstract, the section to what you apply, the call title, and the keywords. So this is basic information. There are some general questions to ask you if you already have submitted your proposal to another initiative before, NH 2020, etc. But these are very simple things. Here, I insist also for stage 2, the part 1 has a section more. There is a table that for the first stage, we don't ask. But for the second stage, there is an ethical table you have to fulfill. So be aware that part 1 for stage 1 and stage 2 is also different. Okay? The content of the proposal. I will not enter into detail about this because my colleague Mohamed will present you more in detail how to write a successful proposal. But it's just to let you know that for the pre-proposal, it's limited to 10 pages. If it's more than 10 pages, the system will reject automatically your proposal. So 10 pages, it's the maximum. We cannot do anymore. In these 10 pages, you have to deal with 2 parts, the excellence part and the impact part. If you are selected for stage 2, you will have to submit a full proposal, and in this case, there are other sections that are about the implementation of your project, the member of your consortium, and the ethical issue and security. This full proposal should not exceed 50 pages. It's the same. If it exceeds, the system rejects it automatically. Why I present you that? Because it's related to the evaluation process. In reality, once you have sent your document and passed the admissibility check and the eligibility check, your proposal is sent to 3 independent experts. These experts don't know each other, they don't know who is evaluating what proposal, they have no connection at all between them. Each one is realizing his own evaluation. Okay, so we are at this level. Once they are finished, we organize a meeting, a physical meeting, where we invite all these experts. So all the experts are around the table, and they will discuss the proposal. Each proposal is discussed, as it has been evaluated by 3 people. They have to agree on a final mark, on a final score. Is the proposal deserved to be funded, yes or not? This is a discussion, and it's always, the final decision is always taken by consensus. So these people, this expert, discovered the evaluation of the other expert on the same project, because there are 3 people, and they have to agree. Once they agree, they provide us a ranking list. So for the first stage, it's the list of the project that will be invited to submit a full proposal for for the second stage. And when you submit a full proposal, we start again with the process, admissibility, eligibility. Normally there is no problem, you are already eligible. And again, your full proposal is sent to 3 different experts. The experts from stage 1 and 2, they are always experts that are in common and experts that are different. So some experts have read your pre-proposal and will also evaluate your full proposal, and some experts are new. So this is the way to have a very independent evaluation. If you are selected at the end of this process, if you apply to Section 1, you will sign a grant agreement with us, and you will receive the money from the European Commission, from us, but coming from the European Commission. And if you are in Section 2, here in this case, each partner will have to sign a grant agreement with his own funding agency, the national funding agency. And after, the project can start and will be monitored. For the evaluation, I wanted to tell you that there are 3 criteria. Why I present the structure of the proposal? Because the structure of the proposal reflects, in reality, the structure of the evaluation criteria. So this is very important. You remember maybe the first part is excellence, so excellence will be rated, will be scored out of 5 points. The impact will be also have a maximum of 5 points. These are the 2 criteria that are used for the first stage. The criteria quality and efficiency of the implementation is only for stage 2, only for the full proposal. And it's also weighted, scored out of 5 points. For innovation action, there is a special weight of the impact criteria. It has a weight of 1.5. So you have really to have that in the mind. The threshold. For the first stage, only 2 criteria, excellence and impact, but you need 4 out of 5 points in excellence and 4 out of 5 points in impact to be selected for the second stage. If you have 5 and 3, it doesn't work. It's a threshold. So 4 and 4 minimum to be selected. If you are selected for the second stage, you have 1 extra criteria about the quality and the implementation of the project. And in this case, the threshold are 3. 3 points for excellence, 3 points for impact, and 3 points for implementation. But the total must be 10 out of 15. Okay? So minimum 3 for each criteria and 10 in total. If not, you cannot receive funding. This is a criteria. Here, the evaluation criteria, I will not read that, but it's again to focus or to draw your attention that the structure is following the structure of the proposal. So read this information very carefully to be sure that you have not forgotten to speak about one aspect that the evaluator can take into account. Because the evaluator, of course, this is what they are using. So you can tick and be sure you have answered all the requirements that are inside this criteria. And so I finish by just telling you general recommendation. Don't wait the last minute for the website, especially because it takes time. It is not complicated, but it takes time. So don't wait the last moment. Moreover, when all the people connect at the last time, the system is slow, so it's more difficult for you to work. So you can prepare your presentation because you can save and register all the data. So you register your first partner and tomorrow you register another, but don't wait the last day to register your 20 partners and upload all your documents because it will be a nightmare for you. Be sure, I insist, again, don't forget the part 1 because it's a pity to declare a project not eligible just for a small admin document. So don't forget that. And for section 2, the partner really have to check their eligibility directly with their funding agency before applying. Because again, every year, these are the main reason why we are rejecting proposal about admissibility and eligibility check. Because the people are involved in proposal, but they didn't check their eligibility with their funding agency. And when the agency check, they declare it not eligible, and sometimes the full project can fall. So this is very, very important, and it's a recommendation we wanted to share with you. And I finish here. I thank you again for your attention.
Okay, good afternoon again. So now we start with the beefy part of the application, which is part 2, about the proposal that you are gonna to prepare and to be submitted to the PRIMA electronic submission system in order to be evaluated. Just to refresh again, this is the structure and the flow of the stages of the PRIMA. You start at the first stage, which is the pre-proposal. You have, as Fabrice already mentioned, that you have part 1, you have the online form as well as the PDF, which is part 1, and part 2, which is the pre-proposal or the technical part of your idea. You will pass, if you pass the admin check and the technical evaluation and invited to the second stage. So in the second stage, you will have, again, part 1, the admin part, online and the PDF, and the full application form, which is up to 50 pages, and finally the Excel sheet. For this presentation, we are gonna to focus mainly on part 2 for the pre-proposal and the full application, and to go through the application form to provide to you some, not only the structure of the documents, but also some recommendations from our side based on the analysis that we made over the last 2 years. For the first stage, the pre-proposal consists of maximum 10 pages covering the excellence and the impact. And as Fabrice already presented in the previous presentation, this is also aligned to the evaluation criteria. So in the first stage, we are only, or the assessors are only evaluating the excellence and the impact. And then if you get lucky and invited to the second stage, so you will have the full proposal, including the first 2 parts, in addition to the implementation, the members of the consortium, and then the ethical aspects. So starting with the main sections of the pre-proposal of the first stage, once again, the maximum is 10 pages. If you try to submit more than 10 pages, the system will reject this and will give you an announcement that it couldn't be uploaded or submitted to the system. So for the excellence, you have 4 main points under the excellence section, and we strongly advise you to stick to this order because we need to respect that the assessors are evaluating it like point by point. So don't imagine that, don't assume that, okay, it's just 10 pages, so for sure they will read it. So I will put maybe the impact before the excellence or the ambition under the impact. No, please respect to the structure of the documents. And from the PRIMA website, as already Fabrice showed to you, you can download the Word document of the pre-proposal and all documents and all templates. So we start with the objective, try to define the specific and overall objective which is related to your project. It has to be SMART, means it has to be specific to the goal that you are trying to address. It has to be measurable, that we can measure and to assess the performance you achieve the goals or not, which is achievable, that's something realistic that we can achieve using the resources and the time that we are having. Realistic, not to be so ambitious, and timing within the period of the project that you are applying for. Once again, it has to be precise and specific, and what is really here very important, it has to be reflect what is already written in the call text. That's why it is strongly advised to read carefully again and again the call text to make sure that you fully understand what is PRIMA looking for, in order to make sure that you are proposing something aligned and relevant to what they are asking for. Avoid too ambitious or too generic objectives, because this is negatively evaluated by the assessors. Not to be so optimistic about, okay, I'm going to solve the all issues of the Mediterranean diet in the region, because this is not going to be achieved by one project, but your project is just like a piece of the puzzle that can achieve at the end this objective. avoid the narrative description and use this 10 pages wisely, because you have only 10 pages and there is no score at the first stage on the implementation and the quality of the implementation and the details of the work packages, because you will have more pages and the space in the second stage to elaborate more this part. Define as well the location and the geographical coverage, the main stakeholder that you are gonna to deal with them and how you are gonna to approach them. The second point, or point 1.2, which is the relation to the call and to the topic that you are addressing. Here you are gonna to reflect what is written inside the call text on your projects and try to find this matching between the two sides. It's also here important to highlight that the call text is not a standalone document by itself. So you need as well to refer to the PRIMA SRIA, or the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, to see the holistic view of, or the vision of the PRIMA itself. So not just read the 2 pages about the call text and say, okay, let's go to write our proposal and prepare our project, but also you need to check other documents such as the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, as well as if there is any other relevant EU policies which is related to the topics or to the areas that you are going to tackle. Use tabular form wisely, for instance, like matching between what is written inside the call text and the PRIMA SRIA and what are you proposing in your project. Refer to the particular demands and what are the challenges facing the Mediterranean countries and how your project is gonna to achieve or to solve these societal challenges, and refer for any significant plans undertaken in the region. For instance, if there is like a regional initiative or regional new policy about achieving the SDG or Mediterranean diet or water scarcity, for instance, so you need to make sure that your project and your idea is aligned with this regional or international policies as well. So far, you are not talking about the persona or the project itself and the innovation itself, because you will have the point 1.3 for the concept and the methodology. Under the concept, it is the first part under the 1.3, which is the overall concept and the novelty of your idea, how you are gonna to achieve this goal, showing as well the interdisciplinary and the stakeholders and the partners' knowledge that you are gonna to bring and to collect all of them together. And this is referred, I think, to your question about the engagement of the stakeholders and the partners. Because for sure, each partner has to have a critical role, an essential role in the project. Otherwise, it's going to be negatively evaluated by the assessor if you are just inviting this partner from this country because, yeah, we used to cooperate together and to publish papers together without having a significant and real role in the projects. This is going to be negatively evaluated by the assessors. Also, you need to explain the technology readiness level, which is also part of, or another answer for one of the questions this morning, that, okay, you start with it at a certain technology level, for instance, you prove the concept, you have some prototypes or whatever, and you are gonna, through this project, to advance this technology. For instance, like a mobile, for instance, hardware. Yeah, we succeeded to develop like the most perfect revolutionary clear camera, for instance. But at the end, so we are gonna to implement this technology inside a complete solution. So you need to present the initial TRL and what is your aim or your final objective or the final TRL that you are planning to achieve at the end. Describe as well any synergy and complementarity among your project and other projects or other findings, for instance, as we hear this morning, or other initiatives or other activities that you are engaged on. Part B for the 1.3, which is the applied methodology. What is the approach, the applied approach that you are gonna to apply in order to move from the objective that you are presenting till the expected final result that you are promising to achieve. Also mention the state of the art. Okay, we are gonna to advance the technology in a certain level from one TRL to advanced TRL, for instance, and also mention the logic behind the structure of the work packages. Here, you are not going to talk about the details of the work packages, like we are going to collect X number of samples, we are going to do site visits, we are going to implement this, the names of the tests. This is not the position or the time to put this at this level, but in the second stage. But here, you provide the logic behind the structure and the sequence of your work packages and the main activities and tasks, as well as link it to the rules and the participation of each partners. Because this is also reflect the importance of the selection of these partners who are highly relevant to the work packages and the activities that you are promising to achieve, as well not to forget the gender dimension, the section, and the gender analysis. The last part of the excellence, which is 1.4, which is the ambition like beyond the state of the art. What are the added value of your project or your idea, and compare it against the already available alternative, that, okay, the available technologies in the market have this drawbacks or disadvantages, and we are gonna to overcome or to bypass this shortcomings with the new proposed or advanced technologies. Also refer to what advantage that you are gonna to propose, what are the size and the impact of your technologies. For instance, if we are tackling a very rich and wide market, for instance. So this as well reflect on the importance of the impact of your proposed solution. But if you are tackling a very minor market or a minor problem or a challenge in the region, so this maybe negatively reflect on the end impact of your project. Use reference and figures and tables and charts when it's appropriate for you. Then this is the end of the first part, which is the excellence, and now the second part of the pre-proposal, which is the impact. For the impact, you have, for the first stage, you have only 1 point to tackle, which is 2.1, which what are the expected impacts of your project? It has to be clear and specific to your project, and again, align it to the call text. That's why it's strongly advised again to refer to what is written inside the call text, and you can find the section, the last section of each call text, which is the expected impact from the perspective of PRIMA, so you need to align to it. Use quantified indicators when it is appropriate, for sure, so we can evaluate the progress and the performance of your project, as well as define the targets and the values. What are the means of verification, how we can measure these KPIs to verify that you achieve the goals and the objectives that you promised to achieve. Classify as well these impacts, and in the morning, Octavio in his presentation presented the different types of impacts: social, technological, environmental, political, and so on. Who are the target groups and the beneficiaries, and how your project are gonna to affect their life? For instance, and this is like the persona of this year, which is the small farmers or the smallholders. They are at the core of all topics and all goals. So for instance, okay, my solution are gonna to improve the quality of life of these small farmers. They are gonna to get more profit, whatever. We are gonna to propose affordable solution for them. So refer to the target groups and the final beneficiaries and the end users, and how your project are gonna to satisfy their needs and demands. Describe how your project are gonna to contribute to the impact at the level of the program of the PRIMA. That's why you need as well to refer to the annual work program as well as the SRIA document. Don't forget as well if your project has some cross-cutting aspects like the ICT, digital revolution, gender aspects. And once again, refer to the PRIMA SRIA. General remarks for the concept notes. First, you have to consider that the first stage is 10 pages, 2 sections with an equal weight in the first stage. So you need to pay equal attention to the two sides, because sometimes you put a lot of details, or you use like 8 or 9 pages for the excellence, talking about the details of the technologies, the advantage and so on, and forget about the impact. But as Fabrice already mentioned that, each one of them has its internal sub-evaluation criteria, so you need to respect this. It's only 10 pages, so you need to use it wisely and precisely. Don't waste spaces in elaborating more the technical details and, the blah, blah, blah information. Quantify as much as you can the deliverables, the impacts, the KPIs that you present. Use tables and figures when it's appropriate, but not extensively because it's only 10 pages. Present dissemination and communication and exploitation plan, because this is very important, but try to use it in brief, because in the second stage, in 2.2, the point 2.2, you will have more space to elaborate more on this section. Show the role and the engagement of your partner, the stakeholders, and the end users. And finally, the networking and synergy with other previous actions and initiatives. As we heard this morning, that if you have another projects that have some useful findings and you are going to build upon this, this is something that you need to show to the assessor. Okay, congratulations, you have been invited to the second stage. So you have now the full application or part 2, which is 50 pages. Once again, you have still the excellence part section and 2.1. So you have now more space to elaborate more details about your excellence, the technologies, and the target groups. Avoid any drastic changes because, and that's why we put this in red, because as Fabrice mentioned that we use this reviewer circulation. So this means, and also during the evaluation of the second stage, the reviewers will have access to your concept note. So they are comparing between what you promised and have been invited based on it to the second stage and what you are proposing now on the second stage. So try to avoid for sure the drastic modification, like, okay, I promised to provide like 3 technical solutions, and at the end, okay, I'm gonna just to achieve only 1 or none. This is gonna to be negatively evaluated by the assessor. Once again, quantify when it is possible regarding to the activities, deliverables, impacts, and the stakeholders. And the new part for section, for the impact part, which is 2.2, as we said that in the first stage, you just in brief present the dissemination, exploitation, and communication plan. The communication is mainly deals with the stakeholders. Okay, we define, for instance, the policymaker as one of the stakeholders. So here you need to present how you are going to approach these stakeholders to get them really engaged in your activities and in your action. And then the new sections as well for stage 2, which is the implementation, the work plan and the work package and the deliverables. And if you are familiar with the structure of the H2020, we are using exactly the same tables, and we are going to present it in the upcoming slides. The management structure and the milestone and the procedure. Okay, we built like a consortium of 10 people, so how we are gonna to arrange the workflow among each other, the time intervals, the review, the periodic reporting, and so on. The consortium as a whole, what are the available resources that you already have and resources to be committed. And then you have the fourth section for a short profile about each participant or each partner of your consortium. And finally, if you have any ethical and security issue in your project, you have to explain how you are going to address these aspects. This is, for instance, in brief, the sort of some tables and templates that, again, we are strongly advising you to respect and to use it. For instance, for the work packages and who are the lead users or the work package leader, the person month start and end date. And this is for each work package. You have a template for elaborating the details and the subtasks or activities under each one of these work packages and its specific objective for this work package and the involved participants or partners in your in this work package, and at the end, the deliverables that are related to this work package. And then, okay, you mentioned under each work package the specific deliverables, so you need to collect them again to put it under the list of deliverables so the assessors can see the deliverables and its related or corresponding work packages and the types of this deliverable, if it is document or demonstration or a report. and the dissemination level, if it is public like a website, or no, it is an internal document, so it is confidential or classified. You have as well a table of the milestones. And this is a common question about, okay, what is the meaning of milestones? Because sometimes people confuse between the deliverable and the milestones. Milestones, it's more like a time or a moment that you take a decision. For instance, you have different alternatives, and you as a consortium are gonna to meet like next month to take decision to select among all these technologies, and okay, we will go in this way. This is the time of a milestone. And the means of verification can be, for instance, a laboratory prototype, or the minutes of the meeting of this steering committee that when you took a decision. Then the critical risks and implementation, during the implementation. For sure, we consider we are talking about research projects, and you are planning now for a project that will last for 3 or 4 years. So for sure you have some or certain risks that may pop up during the implementation of your project. This risk can be political or technical or financial or managerial or the administrative part. And sorry for saying this, but it is not a shame that a project has risk, because this is the logic. Because for sure we are dealing with a research project with a high level of uncertainty at the end. So for sure you will have some risk during the implementation, but the art or the experience is how you are gonna to deal with these risks, and what are the mitigation action or the contingency plan that you are gonna to do in order to overcome these risks. Also refer to the impact of this risk, if it is going to be very severe or no, it's of a low impact at the end, and its probability. Because for instance, if you have a high risk and a high probability, so this means that you need to pay a lot of attention to this risk and try to overcome it. Finally, the summary of the staff effort, and our colleague Pau in the next next presentation, he will talk about how to develop the budget and the different budget section. And finally, this is also related to the budget. So final general remarks for the full application. Under the impact, once again, try to put measurable KPIs and how we can evaluate this, or to make sure that, yes, you achieve what you promised to achieve. Okay, once again, the exploitation and dissemination of your result and how you are gonna to communicate with your target stakeholders. And what is common for the research and innovation action is how you are gonna to enhance the innovation capacities of your partners, of the target groups, of the the end users, for instance, or like, okay, we are going to open a new market in this, and this is, in fact, this is the case for several projects, especially in the first year, that they try to open new market, which is not highly potential in the beginning, in the potent in the region, but they are going to open a new market, and then you need to quantify this. Okay, we are going to open this new market, or we advance certain technologies. For the quality, it's a work plan, so you need as well to link the work packages, the activities, the objectives, the deliverables, as well as the resources, how you are going to use the resources, human or financial, or the time. The management structure and procedure, because most of us try to focus more on the scientific and technological part and forget about, okay, as a coordinator, how I'm going to manage the project if I got the fund. So it's really important as well to present professionally the management structure and the procedure. If there is any complementarity, which is essential for sure among the participants and the partners, and this justifies the rules and the participation of each partner, and the allocation of the task, that, okay, we allocated this task to these partners because they are the best who can fulfill this part. The final two slides, the first is why do we fail? The most common reason of a failure, first, that we have weak or vague project idea. It is not innovative, it is repetitive, it has been funded many times before, or it is innovative, but we failed to present its impact or its importance at the end. Low relevance to the call text or topics, because we didn't read carefully the call text. Weak consortium or partners, or overlapping or unjustified rules or participation of the partners. Lack of expertise, yes, okay, we are tackling specific technologies and we succeeded to invite the most relevant partners, but for a certain technology we have a deficiency in this, so this is as well one of the weak points. Use focused approach and avoid vague or open or generic objectives. Be realistic on the amount of the work that you are proposing, and try to avoid the overestimation or underestimation of the budget because it's negatively evaluated. Okay, I'm going to propose for section 2 like a budget less than 1 million, so they will select me, but I'm proposing many deliverables on the other side, because at the end the reviewer will evaluate the technical part and match this with the financial part as well. Poor or unclear language. And finally, this is the last moment advices for you. Try to register, as already Fabrice mentioned, on the electronic submission system. Ensure that your contacts on the system is continuously updated if it's changed, because this is the only way that we can communicate with you. Prepare carefully your own checklist, because we don't put on the guideline or on the templates the checklist, but you can prepare your own checklist to make sure that you fulfill all requirements, and try to use the H2020 self-assessment form to evaluate your work. Read carefully the guidelines, the SRIA, the annual work program, and the call text. Provide all information on the same sequence using the same structure and the same template. And finally, check the PRIMA website regularly, just in case if there is any updates, such as extension of the deadline. And thank you so much for your attention, and wish you all the best.
I think you are very tired. I would like to change a little bit, and it will be very short presentation, don't worry. So after how to write a successful proposal, I will give you some tips and tricks how to build a winning consortium. So, and I will reply to your interesting question. So, first of all, we have to put in mind that to find a partner is not like to go directly to the tools, but there is some tips. I'm going to give you the roadmap how to can build a winning consortium. And then I will give you some tools in order to enhance your consortium. So, first tip, please, you have to be careful. Here that you have to start on time. You have to start on time because now we have time, because the call will be launched in, let's say, 1 week. So, start in time to make sure that you bring the best partners. And what you have to put in mind here, that a lot of competition, can have a lot of competition from other consortia, and who might hijack your perfect partners. So we have to be careful for this. That's why you have to finalize as soon as possible your consortium. So the second tip. The second one, we have to identify the true key opinion, what we call the KOL, the key opinion leaders. It's very important. You have to identify but according to your field, you need to identify the key opinion leaders, what we call the KOL. And then you have to set up a consortium that combines partners from various disciplines. So here, the first, you have to set the first, let us say the core of the consortium, the key opinion leaders. And what you call this is linked to the excellence of your consortium. The second one is the transdisciplinarity. You have to be sure that you have different fields, and you have to cover all the discipline according, of course, to the call. The third one is the complementarity. You have to be sure there is complementarity between all the partners. And the fourth one is the balance. You have to be careful for the geographic spread of the partner and try to have a balance between, for example, profit and non-profit partner. So keep in mind, please, the KOL, what we call the key opinion leaders. So the third tip is to establish your core consortium. This is the first consortium. Let us say 4, 5, 6, it depends on on your project. So you have to bring on board the KOLs, only the KOLs, not all the partners, and then within your specific. And if you will bring you will bring the QL within the specific field, so we have to establish what I said, a core consortium, the base of your consortium. So don't put a lot of partners, like 10, 12, or whatever. So you have to be the first consortium, the base consortium, you call it the core consortium. And then once you develop the core consortium, you have to go to develop your excellent plan. So you have to write the main objectives and the rough outline of the project. Only with this core consortium, not with other partners. And when we go to find the partners, is the 5. In the 5, we will look to the other partners. So, and in here, we will use of course, one of the tools is to use the partner tool. But before going to the partner tools, the first, we have to start building the rest of the consortium from this core. And I think that this core of the consortium, or the base of the consortium, and of course you have networks. You have your network, and the core consortium have their network. So you have to use this worker in order to establish the consortium. But if you didn't find or whatever, so you can go now to the third option to use the partner tool. And you can see here, it's not the first step, the partner tool, but it's like the 5th step. Once we establish the core of the consortium, once we look for the network, your network and the network of the core, then we go to the partner tool. And you will not use only one partner tool, because sometimes you will be a little bit confused, as you said. So the first partner tool, and I will of course start by PRIMA. If you enter in the website of PRIMA, so you can use the search engine, and you can type, I need hydrology from Spain, for example, and you can have all the partners in this field. You can also post your request. You can register and put your request in the tool. So I think that's it's a very interesting tool, and we have a great number, so we can maybe find a good partner for your consortium. But also you can find these other tools, and I see it here, the Enterprise Europe Network. I think this is very good also tool, and in this Enterprise Europe Network, there is around 60 countries, around even South and Mediterranean countries, and around maybe more than 6 organizations. You can find Chamber of Commerce, you can also find universities, you can find the technology ports, and so on and so forth. So please also, you can check this platform. It is open, and you can identify your partner. The third one is funding and tender portal. The funding and tender portal normally is dedicated mainly to find, not to find partner, but to find the program and the tender. But here you can also use it to find partner for your project, and you can filter by keyword, and you can by organization type, or also by country. So here also you can find a good partner for your consortium. I think you know very well Cordis, and you already maybe used it before in your consortia. So that's very interesting in Cordis, that we can find a lot of information mainly for the funded proposal. And here you can find the project fact sheets, you can find also reports, you can find several deliverables, you can find also a publication. And this with the Cordis, I think you have, let us say, more information than the other tools. So please don't use only one partner tool, but you can use a lot of partner tool. And for example, the Cordis, you have more information, even more than the other partner tool. But not only the partner tool is necessary for your consortium. Please, you can ask the NCP, for example, for the NCP of PRIMA, and I think that they are in connection with a lot of research or a lot of partners. So you can ask them directly. And if you go to the website of PRIMA, so we can, for each country, you can have the name, the address email, and even the telephone if you like. So you can ask them directly if you like a partner from the private sector, from whatever. So you can have this contact direct with the NCP. But also, not only the NCP of PRIMA and the NCP of H2020, I think you already know the NCP of H2020, and it's the same. You can be on contact with them in order to find the best partner for your consortium. So please, you have time. We have 1 week before the publication of the call, or maybe a little bit more. So start from now, because if you start from now, I am not sure that you will have like winning consortium. So all the best for you, and hope you will find a very good consortium for the next call of PRIMA. Thank you.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon, indeed. I will present the financial guidelines for how to prepare the proposal. And before starting my presentation, I want to be sure that my presentation will be focused on Section 1 rules, okay? Section 2 rules, it applies to all the funding agency and it has its national rules. So I would like to explain the basic rules for Section 1, okay? And PRIMA projects follows H2020 rules, okay? We don't do anything special. So if you know already the H2020 rules, you will know how to prepare the budget and how to justify all the expenses. So I will give a short explanation what are the eligible and the ineligible costs, then the concept of third party, and finally, how will be the report and the payments for the proposals that will be selected. What kind of eligible costs do we have? First of all, there are the direct personal costs. The second one are the direct costs of subcontracting. The third are the direct costs of providing financial support, even that they are not really relevant in the PRIMA proposals. The fourth one are the other direct costs, and the fifth are the indirect costs. Okay, and now we will explain a little bit more on each of one. And then, the first of all, it's the direct costs are the ones who are directly linked to the action, so they are easy to identify them. And the indirect costs are the ones who are not really related to the action, and they are calculated in a different type. Which are the general conditions to calculate the eligible cost? Okay, we have three different kinds of costs. We have the actual cost, the unit cost, and the flat rate cost. The actual costs are the most common one, and they have to incur in the action during the length of the action. They have to follow the national rules. They have to be reasonable and justified. And it has to be according to the Annex 1. You cannot justify a cost which are not described in the Annex 1. Unit cost can be also justified and is another measure that all the organizations can do, but it has to be its usual practice. Okay? You cannot start working in unit cost for the PRIMA action. It has to be an accounting practice that you have been using before the start of the action. Okay? And finally, the flat rate costs, which are used to calculate the indirect cost. And later on, we'll know with an example how to calculate them. The direct personal cost, I will dedicate 3-4 slides on it because it's the most important cost in PRIMA proposals. Okay, and the last 2 years, it represents approximately 60-70% of the cost of the proposal. So I want to be sure that you understand what can you include in this section. Okay. As a standard case, an employment contract is the most common cost that you can justify as a personal cost, okay? You have to fulfill the national law of each country, but there are other cases that are acceptable under 2020 rules. which are natural person that can be hired not as a contract, labor contract, but in another kind of contract if they fulfill some conditions. Okay, this person theoretical have to be under the law of the organization. The work that will be done, the output will belong to the beneficiary, and also that the costs that are incurred by this person or persons should be similar than a normal standard labor contract. How to calculate them? Apparently it's easy. You have to take account the hours that a person works multiplied by an hourly rate, okay? And here the importance of how to calculate the hours work. Timesheets, they are mandatory, okay? You have to fulfill that every single person that works on the action should fill in the timesheets, okay? And this might be signed by two persons, the person who works plus his or her supervisor. If we don't have timesheets, the cost will be not eligible, okay? So this is I want to point out. Then I will explain how to calculate the hourly rate, and there is a possibility to add additional remuneration if you work in a non-profit legal organization. So to calculate the hourly rate, you can do it either with actual cost or unit cost. Okay? The general case, I will explain it as actual cost in the next slide. And if you use unit cost, you can use it as long as you have been working in this tool or in this accounting practice before. Okay? So it's an average of the hourly rate per person. Or if you are an SME owner, the Annex 3A, if I'm not wrong, it says which is the rate per each country if the SME owner has not a salary, okay? Then you should apply this rate multiplied by the hours that you expect to work on it, and then you have the cost. The hourly rate is the personal cost divided by the productive hours. What does the personal cost include? The salary, the social contribution, plus any other remuneration that should be implied. And the productive hours, normally, as a general condition, your labor agreement should say how many hours can you work per month, per week, per year, okay? If it's not clear or you have doubts, there are other options. The H2020 rules applies, okay? Which the most standard one is this 1,720 hours, okay? So if the labor agreement is not clear, you can use this rate. Then there are the two other methods, which are also allowed, but they are not very common. Here, with an example, I will explain which hourly rate do you have to apply when you report, okay? Considering this example, the period report begins the 1st of October 2019 and ends 18 months later, the 31 of March 2021. So the rule says that you have to use the hourly rate when the year is closed. So in this example, when you justify this first period, you went in 2019, you have the year closed, you will have to use the hourly rate of 2019. The same in 2020. But when you justify the first 3 months of 2021, you will have to use the hourly rate of 2020, okay? Take in consideration because there are a lot of errors on that. The second category is the direct cost of subcontracting. Subcontracting is allowed, but you have to inform in Annex 1, okay? If you subcontract part of the work, it should be stated in Annex 1 who will be the company, organization, and also it has to be justified in actual cost. Other direct costs is the third category. The most common ones is the travel cost, the equipment, or other goods. And the equipment, please, when you buy an asset, you have to use this rule, okay? You cannot incur 100% of the cost of the action. Normally, the asset has a length more than the 3-4 years of the action, so you cannot justify 100% on the action. You have to justify it on the use that it's according to the use of the asset, okay? So you have to taking on consideration the annual depreciation according to the national laws, the use of the action, and the days that you use per day per year. Finally, we have the indirect costs, which I have mentioned is in H2020, it's a flat rate. They are much easier to calculate. And this is the 25% of the total eligible cost, okay? And I think it's easier to understand it in an example. In this example, we have 100,000 personal costs, plus 20,000 of subcontracting costs, plus 10,000 of other direct costs. So the total eligible direct costs are 130,000, but when you calculate the indirect costs, you cannot consider the subcontracting, okay? Because it's a part of the work which is not done in the premises of the organization. So the total eligible indirect cost is 27,500,000 euros. So the total eligible cost would be 1,557,500 euros. Example of indirect costs, which are difficult to identify linked to the action: the rent of the building, the light, the security. There are many of them that cannot be attributed directly to the action. So we have seen the eligible costs, and then we move to the ineligible. There are a huge list of not eligible costs, but the most common one are, for example, the currency exchange losses. Remember that all the reports must be done in euros, so you have to take in consideration that you have to do the exchange rate if you work in the South Mediterranean countries. Also the deductible VAT, so if your organization already is a profit organization and receives the VAT back, you cannot justify it because you will have to receive it twice. And also important to remark that all the costs incurred before the start of the action are not eligible. So all the costs that you will prepare, the submission process, and on the meetings that you can do with your potential partners are not eligible. Okay? Here there is an example of the budget. Okay, how is it structured? And I think it's useful for you that when you present in stage 2 the budget, it's an estimation per partner and per category. But it does not mean that it cannot be changed, okay? H2020 allows to do some changes without doing an amendment, which are the green arrows, okay? All the changes must be reported to the coordinator, and coordinator will inform PRIMA, okay? If there are not technical issues or financial issues, we should accept it, and you will explain it in the reporting period. But there are some of them which, for example, if you change the direct subcontracting to one partner to the other one, we should analyze it, and maybe an amendment is needed. But the thing that you should have in mind is that everything should be informed to the coordinator, and the coordinator will inform PRIMA. And when you present the budget in section 2, in stage 2, sorry, take in consideration that innovation actions, you should apply the reimbursement rate, okay? All profit organization can only justify 70% of all the eligible costs, and non-profit 100%. This is important because we have found some problems on this, because the total eligible costs always are higher than the total grant amount, okay? So please consider this. And also, if you have linked third parties, when you present the budget, you deserve a row for them, okay? Link it to the beneficiary that it requires the work. Okay? The third party. This concept of third party it's an entity who carry out part of the work and don't sign the grant agreement, except the linked third parties which sign the accession form. Okay? And with this chart, I think it's easy to understand which are the two categories of third parties H2020 rules. Okay? This is on your left side, the carrying out of the work, which are the subcontractors and the linked third parties. And the other category are the providing resources. which are contracts or use of in-kind contributions. Here you have a summary, so I will leave this chart in case you have more doubts of linked third parties. We also will provide you this presentation on the website, but this is a summary to see which article applies under each category, and if you have doubts, we can show it later. Okay. And finally, how will be the report and the payments? Okay. Once you have been selected, Julia will explain how is the grant agreement signature. But after the first day of the actions, PRIMA has 30 days to do the first payment, which will be the 60% of the total grant amount. Okay? No need to justify. We need the grant agreement, sign it, and we do the transfer. The first reporting period will be at the middle of the action. So if the action lasts 3 years, it will be at the 18th month. You have 30 days to report it. Okay? The coordinator will compile all the reports from the beneficiaries and will create one single report that will submit to PRIMA. And PRIMA have 60 days to check it and ask for some information, if need be, ask for more, whatever it needs. If everything is okay, PRIMA can pay up to 30% more, okay, which is the interim payment. And at the end of the action, the same procedure. You will have to present a final report, which includes a technical and a financial report, and we have 60 days to check it, and if need be, we will pay the 10% of the payment of the balance. So just to summarize, keep calm and follow the rules. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bona tarda. I'm Julià Revés, the legal officer of PRIMA, and I will close this Infoday talking about our 2020 calls from a legal perspective. I will talk about the grant agreement. It was expected that I would have finished 10 minutes ago, so I promise you that I will be very brief, and especially after this intense morning with a lot of information. And I'm also conscious that it's not easy to talk about legal affairs in front of the research and scientific community. So I will be very brief. I will not do a deep analysis on the grant agreement, especially because you don't need to know it now at this stage. What I will do is to provide you, to give you the main ideas about the grant agreement that you need to know in the current stage, that you are sitting here thinking about the content of the call, thinking about how to build a strong consortium, Ali, how to make a good proposal, Mohamed and Fabrice. So also, everything that I will explain you will sound very familiar to you if you have all participated before in the H 2020 program. And allow me to do one clarification before I start. Everything that I will explain relates directly with Section 1 projects. As it has been explained, you may know, our calls are organized essentially through two sections, 1 and 2. In Section 1, we fund you. We sign the grant agreements with you. In Section 2, your funding national agencies will fund you, and you will sign the grant agreements with them. In any case, the presentation is very general, so I think that the main ideas will be useful as well for Section 2 projects. The main ideas that I was talking about, the grant agreement. The grant agreement is the contract that will be signed between you as a partner or coordinator of a consortium with a project selected for funding and us as a funding body on behalf of the European Commission. And the grant agreement is also the legal instrument that PRIMA will use to ensure that the project, that your proposal, is performed in the way that we have agreed. As important is the result as the way to achieve this result. And also, the grant agreement ensures that you perform the project, the proposal, the action, according to law requirements. Also, we will use the grant agreement in case a consortium does not follow the rules, as Pau has said in this slide, that next year you should lend it to me follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, we will tackle this situation through the grant agreement. No need to read this slide, too much information, but if you want to check it later on in the presentation that will be available online, these are the sanctions that the grant agreement foresee in case a consortium breaches the rules. The main parts of the grant agreement, of the GA. The Annex 1 is this is your project, this is your full proposal that you will submit in the second stage, and if this is the case, will be selected for funding. The Annex 2, the same for the budget. A little bit up, the grant agreement itself, with its more than 50 articles, that will be signed only by the coordinator. The rest of the partners and possible linked third parties will sign the grant agreement through the Annex 3, the accession forms. When we will sign the grant agreement? Obviously, once the evaluation process performed by independent experts, explained by Fabrice before, is finished. Once these evaluators, these assessors, decides which are the best projects, which are the projects that deserve to be funded, they will make a ranking list. At that point, the highest PRIMA and more representative body of our organization, the Board of Trustees, approves this ranking list. In that moment, you will receive a communication from us, and we will give you, if this is the case, the good news that your project has been selected for funding. And we will explain you the procedure that we will follow to sign the grant agreement. This brings me to my next topic, the procedure. Every year I receive a lot of times, several times, the same question. And the answer is no. We don't use the EU participant portal. We are part of the H2020 program, but we don't use the EU participant portal. But we have a very clear workflow. But all the exchanging of information and documentation will be done through email. It can sound a little bit old-fashioned, but we will manage through email. We did it before, and we will do it again in the call 2020. This workflow is the workflow that we are currently applying right now for signing the grant agreements selected for funding from the call 2019. It's a clear workflow, but it's a little bit strict in time terms. Why? Because as Antonella has explained before, we need to fulfill the H2020 time to grant. This is maximum 8 months from the call closure until the date in which we sign the grant agreement. That's why we only provide you 2 months to sign the consortium agreement. And this brings me to the next topic. What other document beside the grant agreement shall be signed? Before the grant agreement shall be signed the consortium agreement. This is an internal document that has to be signed among the partners of the consortium. This consortium agreement complements the grant agreement, and we are not involved in this procedure. It is signed only among you, only among the partners of the consortium. And the only thing that we request regarding the consortium agreement is that the coordinator signs a declaration stating that the consortium agreement has been signed and it does not contain any clause or provision contrary to the grant agreement. It's the only that we request regarding the consortium agreement. And why do I explain you this now in this stage that you are thinking about submitting or not proposals? Because in case that you submit a full proposal in the stage 2, be ready, in case that this project is selected for funding, be ready to sign the consortium agreement in this short period. The amendments. Now you are thinking about the proposal that you will submit. This proposal will be designed in 2020, but it will be performed in 2021, 2022, 2023, and you can think now that maybe some things need to be changed. No problem. The grant agreement and the description of the action can be changed as many times as necessary, but with some limitations. This change needs to be necessary, justified, and above all, the action cannot be changed in a way in which the reasons or the elements that the evaluators use to select your project for funding are changed as well. If not, we break the principle of equal treatment between participants. And finally, we had a question from Marco de la Fel, I think, before about subcontractors, and Pau have explained about third parties and subcontractors. So now you're thinking about the proposal and the action, and you're thinking about including some entities from outside the consortium. You can do it, and you can include them, but be aware that there are some limitations, and essentially I can resume in 3 points. First of all, the tasks that they will do cannot be essential or core tasks of the projects. So if you're thinking about tasks that they are essential or core tasks for the project, they cannot be done through subcontractors. Also, when selecting the subcontractors, please ensure best value for money and avoid conflict of interest among other requirements. And you can, if you want to know more about our model grant agreement, you can check it online. It's available on our website. We essentially follow the H2020 template, but with some adaptations to our organization. And I finish. I hope that you will participate in our 2020 calls. And good luck, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Julia, Pau, Mohammed, Fabrice, and Ali. Now, I know we are behind schedule, but we have some time to take a few questions, if you don't mind. But before that, I would like to announce that we will reply to those questions that we have received on the streaming in writing. So we will work on that for those who are watching us on streaming. But now we go back to the room, and if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them and answer them. Yeah, start here. Can I get the mic, please?
I have a small 2 questions. What's the idea of leaving the submitting the proposal 1 month before? Why it's not open from the beginning?
In reality, the website to submit your proposal is open 1 month before the submission. So you have 1 month to complete your application. This is a question also of security to avoid, if you let the website open during much more time, 2 months, you have a higher risk of being hacked or this kind of thing. So this is for this reason. 1 month, generally, it's more than enough to submit a proposal.
Is the budget dividing for if this is an EU or non-EU plays a significant role in the selection? Because one of the proposals that we submitted in 2018 was the budget was more in the direction of Germany took a lot of this budget of the project, although the partners in the Mediterranean countries was not that, the balance was not there. So this is also an issue when selecting? Thank you.
Well, the answer is yes and not. I mean, it's not there is no rule. I mean, there is no minimum budget per south and northern countries, but the evaluators and the assessors take in consideration that not fulfilling the eligibility criteria just to putting a southern or northern country. Okay, so I encourage you to make a consortium with different partners, which each of one have a relevant presence in the consortium, and the budget will be much higher in the northern because the costs are much higher, personal costs, for example. But I mean, it's not a full criteria or a unique criteria to be one single partner from the south.
If you allow me to add, actually, thank you very much for your question. This is really important. When forming a consortium we are talking about a partnership. And in my view, and the evaluator's view, and PRIMA's view in general, to have a successful partnership, you need to have a real active role for each partner in the consortium. So the distribution from administrative perspective of budget is not like mandatory that one part or one partner has more or less or have a certain percentage. But when it comes to evaluation, the distribution of budget reflects the role of each partner in the consortium. So we have mentioned, Fabrice has mentioned, and the other guys have mentioned that the minimum is 3 partners, one from the north and one from the south. But in reality, we need to have the work distributed as equal as possible within the partners within the consortium. And each one has a significant role in the consortium, not just to meet the requirement in order to pass or to be evaluated as a PRIMA project. So to summarize, each partner must have a significant role, and the budget allocation depends on that role within the consortium. Other questions, please? Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Carla. I'm from the University of Lisbon. Thank you for your presentations during this morning. I just have one question regarding the financial viability check. Is that only for the coordinating partner or for all partners? Viability check.
For all the partners.
For all the partners.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, well, I know that the presentations were very clear, and then also to make it clear also that we are all available for any follow-up, or if you have later on any questions, you have our PRIMA website, you have our contacts, our emails, and all PRIMA Secretariat is more than happy and willing to answer any questions or inquiry you may have at any time. So if there is no other questions, if you don't have anything to add, Octavi, then I think we can just conclude this session. Well, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today. I hope that the session has been useful for you. I'd like to thank all my colleagues, all the staff, but I'd like to especially highlight the role of Alienor, Wahid, and Sarah, and Jordi, who has been attending logistically the whole morning, the whole session. You are all invited, not the ones that are on remote, sorry about that, but the rest, you are invited for a lunch in which I hope that there are questions or more detailed questions. You may always raise them. And I wish you a safe trip back home. Thank you.